The Reflection, a psychological thriller novel. Chapter 1. The Stranger in the Mirror. The rain hammered against the windows of Vivian Cross's Manhattan penthouse like 1,000 desperate fingers trying to get in. She stood in her bathroom, mascara wand frozen halfway to her lashes, staring at something that shouldn't be possible. Her reflection was smiling. She wasn't. Vivian blinked hard, her heart stuttering in her chest. When she opened her eyes again, everything was normal. Same porcelain skin, same sharp green eyes, same expression of exhausted determination she'd worn for the past 3 months, ever since the nightmares started. "You're losing it," she whispered to herself, gripping the marble countertop. Too much coffee, not enough sleep. But she knew it wasn't that simple. Nothing had been simple since she'd taken the Ashford case. Vivian Cross was one of New York's most sought-after forensic psychologists, the woman prosecutors called when they needed someone to get inside a killer's mind. At 32, she'd testified in over 40 murder trials, and her profile assessments had a 93% accuracy rate. She was brilliant, composed, untouchable. Or she had been until 3 months ago. The Ashford murders had gripped the city in a way no case had in decades. 5 women, all successful professionals in their 30s, all found in their own homes with no signs of forced entry. Each one posed in front of a mirror, their throats cut with surgical precision, their faces arranged in peaceful smiles that contradicted the violence of their deaths. The police had nothing. No DNA, no witnesses, no apparent connection between the victims except their demographics. That's when they'd called Vivian. She'd spent weeks studying the crime scene photos, building a profile of someone meticulous, patient, someone who could charm their way into these women's lives, someone who was obsessed with reflection, with seeing themselves through their victim's eyes. And then the dream started. At first, they were fragments: a darkened hallway, the glint of a blade, the suffocating smell of jasmine perfume. But they'd grown more vivid, more specific. She'd wake up gasping, her sheets soaked with sweat, the taste of copper in her mouth. Last week, she'd dreamed about a woman named Sarah Martinez. 3 days later, Sarah Martinez became victim number 6. Vivian hadn't told anyone. How could she? It was impossible, irrational. She was a scientist, not a psychic. There had to be another explanation, something she'd seen in the case files that her subconscious was processing, details her conscious mind had missed. But deep down, in a place she didn't want to examine too closely, she knew it was more than that. The intercom buzzed, jolting her back to the present. She glanced at the clock. 8:47 p.m. She wasn't expecting anyone. "Ms. Cross?" The doorman's voice crackled through the speaker. "There's a gentleman here to see you. Says his name is Dr. Elijah Kane. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent. Something about the Ashford case." Vivian's blood ran cold. She knew that name. Dr. Elijah Kane was a legend in forensic psychology, a man whose groundbreaking work on criminal psychology had revolutionized the field 20 years ago. He'd been her inspiration for entering the profession. He'd also disappeared from public life 15 years ago after some kind of scandal she'd never been able to find details about. Rumor was he'd had a complete breakdown after getting too close to a case. "Send him up," she heard herself say. She changed quickly out of her robe into jeans and a black cashmere sweater, ran her fingers through her dark hair. Her hands were shaking slightly. Why would Elijah Kane, a man who'd become a virtual ghost, suddenly appear at her door? The knock came exactly 3 minutes later. 3 sharp raps, perfectly spaced. When she opened the door, her breath caught. The man standing in her hallway was nothing like she'd imagined. She'd seen one grainy photo of him from 20 years ago. A studious-looking man with wire-rimmed glasses and a forgettable face. The man before her now was anything but forgettable. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes so intensely blue they seemed to look straight through her. His face was all sharp angles and shadows, beautiful in a harsh, unsettling way. He wore an expensive black coat over a charcoal suit, and he radiated a kind of controlled intensity that made the air between them feel electric. "Dr. Cross," he said, his voice low and smooth as aged whiskey. "Thank you for seeing me." "Dr. Kane." She stepped aside, hyper-aware of every movement as he entered her apartment. He moved with liquid grace, his eyes sweeping across her space with an analytical precision she recognized. He was cataloging everything, reading her through her surroundings. "Please, call me Elijah." He turned to face her, and she felt pinned by that gaze. "I apologize for the late hour and the lack of warning, but I've been following the Ashford case, and I believe you're in danger." Vivian's professional mask slipped into place. "That's a dramatic opening, Dr. Kane." "Elijah," he corrected, moving deeper into her living room. He paused in front of her bookshelf, trailing one long finger along the spines. "And I don't deal in drama, Dr. Cross. Only truth." "Then perhaps you should tell me the truth about why you're really here." He turned back to her, and something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or appreciation. Direct. I like that. Very well. He moved to her window, looking out at the rain-drenched city. "You've been having dreams about the murders. Specific dreams. Dreams that have proven accurate." The room tilted. Vivian grabbed the back of her sofa. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because the same thing happened to me." He turned back to her, his expression grave. 15 years ago, when I was hunting a killer in Boston. The Mirror Man case. Perhaps you've heard of it?" She had. It was one of the most disturbing cases in American criminal history, and it had never been solved. 12 victims over the course of 2 years, all found in front of mirrors, all posed with smiles on their faces. Exactly like the Ashford murders. "You think they're connected," she whispered. "I know they are." Elijah moved toward her, and she found herself unable to step back, caught in the gravity of his presence. "The Ashford killer isn't a copycat, Dr. Cross. He's the same man, and he's been waiting 15 years to finish what he started." "That's impossible. The profile doesn't..." "The profile is wrong." He was close now, close enough that she could smell his clone, something dark and woody, with an undertone of smoke. "Because you're not just profiling a killer. You're profiling yourself." The words hung in the air between them like a curse. "What are you talking about?" But even as she asked, something cold was spreading through her chest. Elijah reached into his coat and pulled out a photograph. When he handed it to her, Vivian's world shattered. It was a crime scene photo from 15 years ago, one of the Mirror Man's victims. The woman was posed in front of an ornate mirror, her throat cut, her lips curved in that terrible smile. The woman could have been Vivian's twin. "All of his victims," Elijah said softly, his breath warm against her ear, as he leaned closer to look at the photo with her. "They all look like you. They always have. And now, after 15 years of silence, he's killing again." Vivian's mind raced. "You think I'm his next target?" "No." Elijah's hand came to rest on her shoulder, and she felt the heat of it through her sweater like a brand. "I think you're the reason he's killing at all. I think you've always been the reason. And I think, somewhere deep in your mind, you already know him." The lights flickered. For just a moment, in the window's reflection behind Elijah, Vivian saw her own face, smiling that terrible smile again. Then, her phone rang. She fumbled for it, grateful for the excuse to step away from Elijah's intoxicating proximity. Dr. Cross. "Vivian, it's Detective Morrison." The police detective's voice was tight with tension. "We've got another body. Same MO as the others. But this one's different." "Different how?" "There's a note, left on the mirror." Morrison paused. "It has your name on it." Vivian's phone slipped from her fingers. Elijah caught it before it hit the floor, his reflexes impossibly fast. Their hands touched for just a moment, and she felt a jolt like electricity shoot up her arm. "Where?" Elijah asked into the phone, his eyes never leaving Vivian's face. She heard Morrison's confused response. "Who is this?" "Dr. Cross, who's with you?" "Someone who's going to help us catch this bastard," Elijah said. "Text us the address." He ended the call and handed the phone back to Vivian. "I didn't agree to work with you," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "You didn't have to. The moment I walked through that door, we became partners." He moved past her toward the door, then paused and looked back. "Whether you like it or not, Dr. Cross, our fates are now intertwined. The killer has made sure of that. The only question is whether we can figure out the connection before he decides to bring this game to its inevitable conclusion. Which is? Elijah's smile was dangerous and sad all at once. One of us standing over the other's body, wondering how we got there. As Vivian grabbed her coat and followed him out into the night, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking towards something she'd been running from her entire life. Something that had been waiting in the shadows, watching her through mirrors, knowing that someday she would look back and finally see its face. The rain had turned to sleet, and as they stepped out into the storm, Vivian couldn't tell if she was shivering from the cold, or from fear, or from something else entirely, something that had awakened the moment Elijah Kane's intense blue eyes had met hers, something that felt like recognition, like coming home, like walking willingly into the dark. Chapter 2. The Message in Blood. The crime scene was in Soho, in a converted loft that probably cost more per month than most people made in a year. The building's lobby was all exposed brick and industrial chic, now swarming with police officers and crime scene techs in their white suits, like ghosts moving through the elegant space. Elijah's car, a sleek black Mercedes that probably cost more than Vivian's first house, pulled up to the police barricade. He'd driven through the city streets with the same intensity he seemed to bring to everything, weaving through traffic with practiced precision while Vivian sat in silence, trying to process everything that had happened in the last hour. Detective Marcus Morrison was waiting for them outside, his weathered face drawn tight with exhaustion. He was in his 50s, a 25-year veteran who'd seen it all, but the Ashford case was clearly taking its toll. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his salt and pepper hair looked like he'd been running his hands through it all night. "Dr. Cross," he said. Then his eyes shifted to Elijah with obvious suspicion. "And you are?" "Dr. Elijah Kane. I'm consulting on the case." Elijah's tone brooked no argument, and something in his bearing made Morrison step back slightly. "Since when?" "Since about 30 minutes ago," Vivian said, finding her voice. "Marcus, he has information about a similar case from 15 years ago. I think we need to hear what he has to say." Morrison studied them both for a long moment, then sighed. "Fine, but this is already the strangest goddamn crime scene I've ever worked. And that's saying something." He led them toward the building. "Victim's name is Rachel Winters, 33, investment banker. Neighbors reported hearing music, classical, they said, around 7 p.m. When it was still playing at 10, the woman next door got worried and called building security. They found her. They rode the elevator to the 8th floor in tense silence. Vivian was hyper-aware of Elijah standing close beside her, his presence both comforting and unsettling. She could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell that intoxicating scent of smoke and wood. When she glanced up, she found him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You need to prepare yourself," he said softly, so only she could hear. "What you're about to see, it's not just about the victim anymore. It's a message for you." The elevator doors opened onto a hallway where more officers stood guard. One of them handed Vivian and Elijah protective booties and gloves. As she pulled them on, Vivian's hands were steady, years of training taking over, pushing emotion aside. She was a professional. She could handle this. But the moment she stepped into Rachel Winters' loft, she knew this was different. The apartment was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, exposed beams, modern furniture in shades of cream and gray. And in the center of the open living space, positioned in front of an enormous antique mirror with an ornate gilded frame, was the body. Rachel Winters had been lovely. Even in death, even with the terrible wound across her throat, Vivian could see that. And she could see something else, something that made her blood run cold. Rachel Winters looked exactly like her. Same dark hair, same bone structure, same build. If Vivian had seen her photo without context, she might have thought it was a relative, a sister she never knew she had. But it was the mirror that made Vivian's breath catch in her throat. Written in blood, the victim's blood, were 3 words. "Remember me, Vivian." "Jesus," Morrison muttered behind her. "You see what I mean?" Vivian couldn't speak. She moved closer, drawn to the mirror as if by invisible strings. The handwriting was elegant, controlled, the work of someone who'd taken their time, who'd enjoyed this moment. "Don't touch anything," a crime scene tech warned, but Vivian barely heard him. She stood before the mirror, staring at the message, and suddenly the room tilted. Her vision blurred at the edges, and she felt herself falling backward. Strong hands caught her. Elijah's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her against his chest, steadying her. She felt his heart beating against her back, rapid but strong. "Breathe," he murmured into her ear, his voice cutting through the panic. "Just breathe. You're okay. I've got you." For a moment, she let herself lean into him, drawing strength from his solid presence. Then her training kicked in and she straightened, stepping away from his embrace, even though part of her wanted to stay there. "I'm fine," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "No, you're not." Elijah's eyes searched her face. "None of us are. Not anymore." Morrison was on his phone, barking orders about increasing security. Other detectives were photographing the scene, collecting evidence, doing all the things they were supposed to do. But Vivian could see the fear in their eyes. This wasn't just another murder. This was personal now. "We need to talk," Elijah said quietly. "Somewhere private." Morrison overheard and jerked his head toward a small office area off the main living space. "Use that. I need to give you 5 minutes with Dr. Cross anyway, Kane. Because right now, you're the only connection we have to the original case, and I want answers." The office was small, with a desk and 2 chairs facing each other. Elijah closed the door behind them, and suddenly the space felt incredibly intimate. He leaned against the desk, those blue eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "Tell me about the Mirror Man case," Vivian said, trying to sound professional, in control. "Everything. Everything is a long story." Elijah crossed his arms over his chest, and Vivian noticed how the gesture made his shoulders seem even broader. "But I'll give you the relevant parts. 15 years ago, I was brought in to consult on a series of murders in Boston. 12 women over 2 years, all killed the same way. Throats cut, posed in front of mirrors, that same peaceful smile on their faces. Why did you stop investigating?" Something dark flickered across his face. "Because I got too close. The killer, he didn't just want to kill these women. He wanted to make me understand something, to see something I wasn't ready to see. Which was that I knew him, that I'd always known him." Elijah pushed away from the desk, moving closer to her. "The last victim. Her name was Catherine Kane. She was my sister." Vivian's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God. I was the one who found her. In her apartment, in front of her mirror, with my name written in her blood." His voice was steady, but Vivian could see the pain etched in the lines around his eyes. "The police thought I did it. For 3 months, I was their primary suspect. By the time they cleared me, the killer had vanished. No more murders, no more messages, just silence. And now he's back. Now he's back. And he's chosen you as his focus, his muse." Elijah reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture so intimate and unexpected that Vivian froze. "The question is why? What's the connection between you and him? What does remember me mean?" "I don't know anyone named," Vivian started, but then she stopped. Because that wasn't entirely true. A memory surfaced. One she'd buried so deep, she'd almost forgotten it existed. She was 7 years old at a hospital visiting her mother, who worked as a nurse. There was a boy, maybe 10 or 11, in the psychiatric ward. She'd gotten lost in the corridors and ended up near his room. He was standing at the window looking out, and when he turned and saw her, he'd smiled. "You're like me," he'd said. "You can see them too, can't you? The ones in the mirrors?" She'd run away, terrified, and never went back to that wing of the hospital. Her mother had been transferred to a different department a month later. Vivian had never thought about that boy again. Until now. "What is it?" Elijah asked, reading her expression. "You remembered something." "Maybe. I don't know. It was so long ago, I might be making connections that aren't there." "Tell me anyway." So she did. She told him about the boy in the hospital, about the strange thing he'd said, about how it had terrified her. As she spoke, she watched Elijah's face grow darker, more troubled. "What was the name of the hospital?" he asked. "St. Catherine's, in Brooklyn." "And you were 7? "Yes. It would have been 25 years ago." Late summer, I think. Elijah pulled out his phone and started typing rapidly. His jaw was clenched tight, and Vivian saw a muscle jump in his cheek. After a moment, he turned the screen toward her. It was a newspaper article from 25 years ago. The headline read, "Troubled Youth Escapes from St. Catherine's Psychiatric Facility." There was a photo, grainy and dark, but clear enough. A boy, maybe 11 years old, with light hair and a face that was almost beautiful in its symmetry. His eyes were pale, almost colorless. And beneath the photo, a name, Vivian Cross. Vivian felt the world drop out from under her. That's my father's name," she whispered. "But he died when I was 8. A car accident. My mother told me..." "Your mother told you what she thought you needed to hear." Elijah's voice was gentle but firm. "Vivian, this boy, Vivian Cross, he escaped from St. Catherine's and was never found. He was committed after killing a neighborhood cat and trying to burn down his family's house. The psychiatric evaluation described him as highly intelligent, charming, and completely without empathy. A textbook psychopath. No, this has to be a coincidence. A different Vivian Cross." But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. Because now that she was looking at the photo, really looking, she could see it. The boy's face had a familiar quality to it. The same bone structure she saw in her own mirror every day. "He was your half-brother," Elijah said softly. "Your father's son from a previous relationship, most likely. And somehow he fixated on you, on that one meeting in the hospital corridor. And he's been watching you ever since." Vivian's phone rang, the sound jarring in the small office. She answered it without thinking. "Dr. Cross, this is Officer Reynolds from the 15th Precinct. We've been trying to reach you. There's been an incident at your building." Her heart stopped. "What kind of incident?" "Someone broke into your apartment. Your doorman is in the hospital. He was attacked when he tried to stop the intruder. The perpetrator got away, but we need you to come check if anything was taken." "I'm on my way." She ended the call, her hands shaking. "Someone broke into my apartment. They hurt my doorman." Elijah's expression turned lethal. "He's escalating, moving faster than I thought he would." "Why? What does he want?" "To see you, to talk to you, to make you remember him." Elijah moved to the door, then paused and turned back. "Or to take you. Vivian, from this moment on, you're not going anywhere alone. I'm staying with you, protecting you, until we catch him. You can't just..." "I can, and I will." He opened the door, and his voice dropped to that dangerous low register that sent shivers down her spine. "Because 15 years ago, I failed to protect my sister. I let him take her from me. And I've lived with that guilt every day since. I won't fail again, not with you." The way he said those last words, "not with you," made something inside Vivian's chest tighten. There was something in his eyes, something beyond professional duty, beyond shared trauma. Something that felt like a promise and a confession and a warning all at once. They rode back to her building in tense silence, Morrison and 2 other detectives following in a separate car. The city lights blurred past the windows, and Vivian found herself studying Elijah's profile. The sharp line of his jaw, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel, the barely contained energy that seemed to radiate from him. "Why did you really come to me tonight?" she asked suddenly. "How did you even know to find me?" Elijah didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because 3 days ago, I started having the dreams again. The same ones I had 15 years ago, right before my sister was killed. And in every single one of them, I see you, standing in front of a mirror, smiling that terrible smile, and I'm trying to reach you, trying to stop it from happening, but I'm always too late." He pulled up to her building, where police cars already crowded the street, their lights painting everything in shades of red and blue. "I came here because I couldn't let that dream come true," he said, turning to face her fully. "Because even though we just met, even though this makes no logical sense, I feel like I've been looking for you my entire life. Like you're the answer to a question I didn't know I was asking." Before Vivian could respond, before she could process what he'd just said, Morrison was at the car door. Dr. Cross, you need to see this, he said, his face pale. They rode the elevator up to her penthouse, dread building with each passing floor. When the doors opened, Vivian could see her apartment door was ajar. The wood around the lock splintered. Inside, everything looked normal at first. Nothing seemed to be missing or disturbed, except for one thing. Every mirror in her apartment, and she had 7 of them, had been covered with black cloth. And in her bedroom, on her pillow, was a single white rose and a note written in that same elegant handwriting. Soon, sister. Soon, we'll be together again. And this time, no one can keep us apart. Not even him. Vivian looked at Elijah, saw the rage and fear warring on his face. And she realized that Adrian, her brother, her stalker, her would-be killer, knew about Elijah, knew about whatever was building between them. And he was jealous. Chapter 3, Reflections of the Past. Vivian refused to leave her apartment. Absolutely not, she said, crossing her arms, as Morrison and Elijah argued over her safety. That's exactly what he wants. To control me, to make me afraid, to drive me out of my own home. He broke in here, Elijah said, his voice tight with frustration. He covered your mirrors, left you a message on your pillow. He was in your bedroom, Vivian, in the place where you sleep. The way he said it, with such raw protectiveness, made something warm unfurl in her chest despite the circumstances. But she held her ground. And now the police have changed my locks, installed new security cameras, and stationed officers outside. I'm probably safer here than I'd be anywhere else. She met Elijah's intense gaze. Besides, I'm not going to let him chase me away. I'm a forensic psychologist. This is what I do. I understand killers. I get inside their heads. Maybe it's time I use that training on my own brother. The word felt strange in her mouth. Brother. She had a brother who killed women who looked like her and left them smiling in front of mirrors. Morrison sighed heavily. If you're staying, then so am I, Elijah said before the detective could respond. I'll sleep on your couch or in a chair. I don't care, but I'm not leaving you alone. Dr. Kane, it's not negotiable. His tone left no room for argument, and something in his eyes made Vivian's breath catch. There was fear there, yes, but also something deeper. Something that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't been in years. Morrison looked between them, then threw up his hands. Fine, but I want updates every 2 hours. And if anything feels wrong, you call me immediately. After the detective and the other officers left, Vivian found herself alone with Elijah in her violated space. The black cloths still covered her mirrors, and she couldn't bring herself to remove them. What would she see if she did? Her own face? Or something else? Someone else. You should try to sleep, Elijah said, shrugging off his coat and draping it over a chair. He loosened his tie, and Vivian found herself watching the movement of his fingers, the way they worked the silk. I don't think I can. She moved to her kitchen, needing something to do with her hands. Coffee or something stronger? Stronger sounds good. She poured them each a whiskey. Expensive single malt her ex-boyfriend had left behind when he moved out 6 months ago, complaining that she was married to her work. She'd thought he was wrong at the time. Now, standing in her kitchen with a man she'd met only hours ago, while a serial killer who shared her blood hunted her, she wondered if maybe he'd had a point. Elijah took the glass from her, their fingers brushing. That electric current ran between them again, stronger this time. He felt it too. She could see it in the way his pupils dilated, the way his breath hitched slightly. Tell me about your father, he said, settling onto her couch. The man you knew as your father. Vivian sat in the chair across from him, curling her legs beneath her. Robert Cross. He was a literature professor at Columbia. Gentle, quiet, always had his nose in a book. He died when I was 8, or at least that's what I was told. Car accident on his way home from a conference. And your mother never mentioned Adrian? Never. Not once. Vivian took a long drink, feeling the whiskey burn down her throat. She raised me alone after that. We were close, but there were things she wouldn't talk about. Her past, my father's past, any family beyond the two of us. I always thought it was just grief, that it was too painful for her to remember. She was protecting you, Elijah said quietly, trying to keep you away from Adrian. But she failed, didn't she? Because he found me anyway. Or maybe Vivian's hand trembled slightly as she set down her glass. Maybe he never lost track of me. Maybe he's been watching me my entire life. The thought was suffocating. How many moments had been observed? How many times had she been unknowingly in his sights? When did the dreams start? Elijah asked, leaning forward. Really start, I mean. Not just the recent ones about the murders. Vivian opened her mouth to say 3 months ago, but then she paused. Because that wasn't entirely true, was it? I've had nightmares since I was a child, she admitted. Dreams about mirrors, about reflections that moved wrong, about someone watching me from the other side of the glass. My mother took me to therapists, but they all said it was just a normal childhood fear, that I'd grow out of it. But you didn't. No. They got better for a while, especially during college in my 20s. But they never fully went away. And then 3 months ago, they came back. Worse than ever. 3 months ago, Elijah repeated, his expression dark. That's when the Ashford murders started. He's doing something to you, Vivian. Some kind of connection, some way of putting these images in your mind. That's impossible. You're talking about telepathy, about supernatural. I'm talking about trauma. Elijah stood and moved to her window, looking out at the city lights. About the bond between siblings, especially twins or close-age siblings who experience something profound together. About the way our brains can make connections we don't consciously understand. We weren't close. We met once for maybe 5 minutes. You were 7, and you met a boy in a psychiatric ward who told you that you were like him, that you could see things in mirrors. That's not nothing, Vivian. That's a formative moment. And for him, a disturbed, isolated child who'd already shown violent tendencies, meeting you might have been the most significant moment of his life. Vivian stood and moved to join him at the window, drawn by some invisible pull. They stood side by side, their reflections faint in the dark glass. Tell me about Catherine, she said softly. Your sister. What was she like? Elijah's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, she was brilliant, funny. She wanted to be a dancer, ballet. She had this lightness about her, like she was always half floating. His voice grew rougher. She was my little sister by 3 years. I was supposed to protect her. It wasn't your fault, wasn't it? He turned to her, and the anguish in his eyes was almost unbearable. I was investigating the case. I was so focused on the profile, on the pattern, on finding the killer, that I didn't see what was right in front of me. The way he was building up to her. The way each victim looked more and more like her. Like they were practice, preparation. And then I found her, and it was too late. Without thinking, Vivian reached for his hand. His fingers closed around hers immediately, gripping tight like she was an anchor. That's why you disappeared, she said, understanding flooding through her. After they cleared you, you couldn't do the work anymore. I spent 10 years in isolation. A cabin in Montana, no mirrors, no people, just trying to forget. His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand, and Vivian wasn't sure he even realized he was doing it. But you can't forget something like that. And 3 days ago, when the dreams came back, I knew. I knew he'd return, and I knew I had one chance to do what I should have done 15 years ago, to stop him before he killed again. And you found me. I found you. He turned fully toward her now, still holding her hand, his other hand coming up to cup her face. The gesture was achingly tender. And the strangest part is, Vivian, from the moment I saw your photo in the case files, before I even knew about the connection between you and Adrian, I felt something. Like I'd been looking for you without knowing it. Elijah? She didn't know what she was going to say. The moment felt suspended, crystallized, like they were the only two people in the world. His phone rang, shattering the spell. He pulled away, his expression closing off as he answered. Kane. Vivian couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched Elijah's face go pale, watched his free hand clench into a fist. When? He asked. Then, no, we'll come now. Don't let anyone touch anything. He ended the call and looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her blood run cold. What happened? Your mother. Vivian, your mother is in the hospital. Someone broke into her house tonight and attacked her. The world tilted. Is she? She's alive, unconscious, but alive. But Vivian, he hesitated, like he didn't want to say the next part. The police found something at her house, hidden in her basement, a room that was locked, that she apparently hadn't entered in years. What was in it? Pictures, hundreds of them. All of you. From when you were a baby all the way to recent photos. And drawings, obsessive, detailed drawings of you. Newspaper clippings about your career, your cases, everything. Vivian felt like she was falling. My mother she was helping him? Feeding him information about me? I don't know. Maybe, or maybe he was tormenting her, forcing her to collect these things as some kind of punishment. But there's more. Elijah moved closer, his hands on her shoulders, steadying her. There were letters. Dozens of letters. Unopened. All addressed to you. All from Adrian. He's been writing to me? Her voice came out as a whisper. For years. Since you were 18. Your mother intercepted them, kept them from you. Rage and betrayal and grief tangled together in Vivian's chest. Her mother, the woman who'd raised her, protected her, loved her, had been hiding this from her for over a decade. Had been keeping Adrian's letters, his obsession, secret. I need to see her, Vivian said. I need to talk to her. She's unconscious. Then I need to see those letters. I need to understand what he's been saying to me all these years. Elijah studied her face, then nodded. Okay, get your coat. But Vivian, whatever you read in those letters, remember that he's not well. He's deeply disturbed, and his perception of reality, of you, of your relationship, it's all twisted. They arrived at her mother's house 40 minutes later. It was a small colonial in Westchester, where Vivian had grown up. She hadn't been back in months. Her relationship with her mother had grown strained over the years, though Vivian had never understood why. Now she did. The basement was exactly as the police had described it. A small room with a heavy padlock, now broken open. Inside, the walls were covered with images of Vivian. Baby pictures, school photos, newspaper clippings about her achievements, surveillance photos taken without her knowledge. It was a shrine, or a prison. The letters were in a locked box. Morrison handed it to her, his expression sympathetic. Take your time, he said. We've already photographed everything for evidence. Vivian sat on the basement stairs, Elijah beside her, and opened the first letter. It was dated 10 years ago, just after her 22nd birthday. Dearest Vivian, today is your birthday, though you don't know I know this. Mother keeps your secrets well, doesn't she? But I have my ways of finding things out. I've been watching your career with such pride. A forensic psychologist. How perfect. How poetic. You'll understand minds like mine. You already do, don't you? In your dreams. I think about that day we met. You were so small, so perfect, with those bright green eyes that saw right through me. You asked me why I was in the hospital. Do you remember what I said? I said, because I did something bad, but it felt good. You ran away so fast, but you looked back. You always look back. That's how I know we're the same, you and I. We're two sides of the same mirror. Soon, sister. Soon, I'll be ready to show you what I've been preparing. Soon, we'll stand together and look at our reflection, and you'll finally understand. Forever yours, Adrian. Vivian's hands shook as she set down the letter and picked up another. This one from 5 years ago. My dearest Vivian, I watched you testify in the Henderson trial today. You were magnificent. So confident, so brilliant. The way you dissected that man's psychology. The way you saw through his lies. It was like watching a master at work. But I saw something else too. I saw the darkness in your eyes when you looked at the crime scene photos. The fascination. You hide it well, but I know it's there. That same curiosity I have. That same need to understand the moment when life becomes death. When a person becomes an object. When the reflection in the mirror stops breathing. You chase killers because you need to understand them. But what you really need to understand, what you've always needed to understand, is yourself. And I'm the only one who can show you that truth. The others won't understand. That man you're seeing, David, isn't it? He'll never see the real you. He'll never accept what you are, what we are, but I do, I always have. Soon, my darling sister. So very soon, Adrian. Letter after letter, year after year. Each one more obsessive, more possessive, more disturbing than the last. He'd been tracking every detail of her life, commenting on her relationships, her career decisions, her fears. He'd been inside her head without her even knowing it. And then she reached the most recent letter, dated 3 months ago, right when the murders started. Vivian, I'm tired of waiting. I've been patient for so long, watching you from afar, sending you these letters that you'll never read, that Mother keeps locked away like dirty secrets. But my patience has limits. It's time for you to know me, really know me. So I'm going to show you what I do. I'm going to show you the art I create, the beauty I make from flesh and blood and reflection. Each woman will be a gift to you, a mirror image of the sister I lost, the sister who was taken from me by people who were too afraid to let us know each other. And when you've seen enough, when you've understood what I'm offering you, I'll come for you myself. We'll stand together in front of the mirror, and I'll show you something beautiful, something terrible, something true. This is love, Vivian. This is family. This is destiny. Wait for me. I'm coming home. Adrian! Vivian dropped the letter like it had burned her. Elijah's arm came around her shoulders, pulling her against his chest, and she let herself collapse into him, her whole body shaking. He thinks this is love, she whispered. He thinks killing these women, terrorizing me, is some kind of courtship. He's delusional. His concept of love, of family, of connection, it's all warped by his psychosis. But he's right about one thing. Vivian pulled back to look at Elijah, tears streaming down her face. I do understand him. When I look at those crime scene photos, when I build my profiles, part of me does wonder what it feels like. To have that kind of control, that kind of power. Is that what makes me good at my job? Or is there something wrong with me too? No. Elijah's hands framed her face, his thumbs wiping away her tears. No, Vivian. Curiosity isn't the same as desire. Understanding isn't the same as wanting. You study killers to stop them, not to become them. That's the difference, that's everything. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She almost didn't open it, but something made her look. It was a photo of her and Elijah taken from outside her building, taken tonight, just minutes ago, when they'd gotten into his car. Below the photo, a message. He won't protect you. No one can. I'm the only one who truly sees you, Vivian. And very soon, I'm going to make sure you see me too. Tomorrow night, the old house on Blackwell Island. Come alone or more people die. Come with him and I'll kill him first and make you watch. Your move, sister. Vivian showed the phone to Elijah, watched his face go hard with rage. We're not playing his game, he said. We don't have a choice. There's always a choice. We go to Morrison, we set up a trap, He'll know. He always knows. He's been watching me my entire life, Elijah. He knows how I think, how I'll react. If we try to trick him, people will die. She stood, a terrible calm settling over her. I have to go, I have to face him. Then I'm coming with you. He said, I don't care what he said. Elijah grabbed her shoulders. I lost Catherine because I wasn't there. I won't lose you too. The way he said it, won't lose you too, struck something deep in Vivian's chest. They'd known each other for hours. Hours. But it felt like lifetimes. Like they'd been orbiting each other forever, waiting for this moment, this collision. Why? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Why do you care so much? You don't even know me. Don't I? His eyes searched hers. From the moment I saw you tonight, from the moment you opened that door, I felt like I'd been searching for you without knowing it. Like every case I've ever worked, every killer I've ever profiled, was leading me to this moment. To you. That's not rational. No, it's not. He smiled, sad and beautiful. But when has any of this been rational? He was right. Nothing about this was rational. Not the murders, not Adrian's obsession, Not the way she felt drawn to Elijah like gravity, like fate, like something written in the stars before either of them was born. One day, she said, we have one day to prepare, to figure out how to end this. Together, Elijah said. It wasn't a question. Together, Vivian agreed. But as they left her mother's house and drove back to the city through the pre-dawn darkness, Vivian couldn't shake the feeling that Adrian was right about one thing. Very soon, she would be standing in front of a mirror, staring at her reflection. And this time, she would finally see what was on the other side. Chapter 4. The Woman in the Mirror. Dawn broke over Manhattan in shades of gray and gold, but Vivian hadn't slept. She sat curled in her armchair, watching Elijah sleep on her couch. He'd finally dozed off around 4 a.m., exhaustion overcoming his determination to stay awake and keep watch. In sleep, his face lost some of its intensity. He looked younger, more vulnerable. One hand was stretched toward her chair, as if even unconscious he was trying to reach her, to protect her. Vivian's phone buzzed quietly. A text from the hospital. Her mother was awake. She should wake Elijah, should tell him she was leaving. But something made her slip out quietly, grabbing her coat and keys. She needed to face her mother alone, needed answers that only the woman who'd raised her could provide. The hospital was starting its morning routine when she arrived. Nurses changing shifts, the smell of industrial coffee and antiseptic. Her mother was in a private room, hooked up to monitors, her face pale against the white pillows. Margaret Cross had always been beautiful in a severe way. High cheekbones, dark hair now threaded with silver. The same green eyes Vivian saw in her own mirror. But now she looked small, breakable. There was a bandage on her temple where Adrian had struck her. "Mom," Vivian said softly. Margaret's eyes opened. For a moment, there was relief. Then, seeing Vivian's expression, her face crumpled. "You found the room," she whispered. "You've been hiding letters from me for 10 years. Letters from a brother I didn't know I had. A brother who's now killing women because of his obsession with me." Vivian pulled a chair close to the bed. "So yes, I found the room, and now you're going to tell me everything." Margaret closed her eyes. "I was trying to protect you." "By lying to me?" "By keeping me in the dark while he watched me, followed me, planned. Whatever this is." "You don't understand what he was like." Margaret's voice was thin, pained. Even as a child, there was something wrong, something broken inside him. "Tell me about my father, the real story." Margaret was silent for so long Vivian thought she might refuse. Then, Robert was married before, to a woman named Elena. They had Adrian when Robert was very young, barely 20. Elena was troubled, violent. She would hurt Adrian, terrible things, and Robert didn't know how to stop it. By the time he got custody, Adrian was already damaged. How old was he? 4. Robert tried everything, therapy, medication, specialists. But Adrian just got worse. He would torture animals, set fires, hurt other children. When he was 9, he tried to kill a neighbor's daughter. That's when we had him committed to St. Catherine's. And then you and Dad had me. We thought, God help us, we thought we could have a fresh start, a normal child, a normal family. Robert couldn't look at Adrian anymore without seeing his own failure. So we told everyone he was dead. Told you he was dead. The bitterness in those words cut deep. But Adrian wasn't dead. He escaped. When you were 7, we didn't know for months. The hospital covered it up, afraid of lawsuits. By the time we found out, he'd vanished completely. Margaret's hand trembled as she reached for Vivian's. Your father became obsessed with finding him. He would spend days tracking leads, following rumors. He was convinced Adrian would come for us, for you. And then one night, the car accident. It wasn't an accident. Margaret's voice broke. Robert found Adrian, or Adrian found him. They met on that bridge, and Robert's car went over. They never found a body that could tell them what really happened. But I knew. I always knew Adrian had killed him. Vivian felt like she was falling, the ground dropping away beneath her feet. Her father hadn't died in an accident. He'd been murdered by her brother. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you go to the police? I had no proof. And I was terrified that if I made accusations, if I drew attention to our family, Adrian would come for you. So I stayed quiet. I moved us to a new house. I changed our routines, our lives. And for years, I thought maybe he was really gone this time. Maybe Robert had taken him with him over that bridge. But then the letters started. On your 18th birthday, the first one arrived at your college dorm. I don't know how he found you, but I intercepted it, and everyone after. I thought if I kept them from you, if you never knew he existed, maybe you'd be safe. Maybe his obsession would fade if you never acknowledged it. But it didn't fade. It grew worse. Vivian pulled her hand away, and now 7 women are dead. 7 women who looked like me, because you kept his secrets. I know. Tears streamed down Margaret's face. God forgive me, I know. When I saw the news about the Ashford murders, when I saw their faces, I knew it was him. I knew he'd come back. But I was too afraid to tell you the truth, too ashamed of what our family had created. What happened last night? Why did he attack you? He came for the letters. He said it was time you knew everything, time for you to see what he'd been telling you all these years. And he wanted something else. Margaret's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Your baby pictures. The ones from before you could walk. He said he was building something for you. Something to help you remember. Ice flooded Vivian's veins. Remember what? He wouldn't say. But Vivian, Margaret gripped her daughter's hand with surprising strength. Whatever he wants, whatever he's planning, you cannot give it to him. You cannot go to him. He's not human anymore, if he ever was. He's something else. Something that wears your brother's face but has no soul behind the eyes. I don't have a choice. He's threatening more deaths if I don't meet him. Then let the police handle it. Let them. He'll know. He always knows. Vivian stood. But there's something I need to understand. In his letters, he said we were the same. That I had the same darkness in me. Is that true? Is there something wrong with me too? Margaret's face softened. No, baby. No. You're brilliant and compassionate and good. You study killers because you want to stop them, want to save people. That's not darkness. That's light. Don't let him twist that. Don't let him make you doubt yourself. Yeah. But as Vivian left the hospital, her mother's words echoing in her mind, she couldn't shake the question. Nature versus nurture. Genetics versus environment. She and Adrian shared DNA, shared a father, shared something in their psychological makeup that let them both see into the darkest corners of the human mind. What if the only difference between them was choice? What if she was one bad decision away from becoming exactly what he was? Her phone rang. Elijah. Where are you? His voice was tight with worry. I woke up and you were gone. I'm sorry, I needed to see my mother to get answers. And did you get them? More than I wanted. She climbed into her car, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. My father didn't die in an accident. Adrian killed him. Silence on the other end, then, come back. We need to talk about tonight, about how we're going to handle this. Elijah dash dash. Together, Vivian, remember? You don't face this alone. Those words, you don't face this alone, shouldn't have meant so much, but they did. They meant everything. When she got back to her apartment, Elijah had coffee waiting and a laptop open on her dining table. The screen showed a satellite image of Blackwell Island. It's abandoned, he said, pulling out a chair for her. Used to be a smallpox hospital in the 1800s, then a prison, then just left to rot. The main building is structurally unsound. Most of it's collapsed. But there's a chapel on the north end that's still standing. If I were him, that's where I'd stage this. A chapel. How poetic. Vivian studied the image. There are only 2 ways on and off the island. The old ferry dock on the east side, or by private boat. We could have police waiting at both points. He'll expect that. He'll have an escape route planned. Elijah zoomed in on the chapel. What we need is to understand what he wants from this meeting. What's the end game? What does he think is going to happen? Vivian thought about the letters, about Adrian's twisted concept of family and love. He wants me to choose to acknowledge him as my brother, to accept our connection. He thinks if he can just make me understand him, make me see what he sees, we'll be united somehow. United in what? In madness, in murder. She met Elijah's eyes. He wants me to kill with him. That's what this has all been. An elaborate courtship ritual. The murders are gifts, demonstrations. He's showing me what he can do, what we could do together. That's not going to happen. No, but he doesn't know that yet. In his mind, I'm still that 7-year-old girl who saw him in the hospital, who looked at him and saw something familiar. He thinks we're the same. So maybe I use that. Maybe I play into his delusion long enough to get close, to end this. Elijah's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. No, absolutely not. You're not putting yourself in that position. What choice do we have? We don't negotiate with serial killers. We don't play their games. We do whatever it takes to stop him from killing again. Vivian pulled her hand away. I know you're trying to protect me. I know you lost Catherine, and you're terrified of history repeating itself. But I'm not Catherine. I'm a trained psychologist who specializes in criminal minds. This is what I do. This is different, and you know it. This is personal. Your judgment is compromised. Then it's a good thing I have you. She reached out, touching his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. We do this together. You watch my back, I watch yours. We both come out alive, and we put Adrian away forever. Elijah leaned into her touch, his eyes closing briefly. When he opened them again, they were filled with something raw and desperate. I can't lose you. Even though we just met, even though this makes no sense, I can't lose you. You won't. She moved closer, drawn by that magnetic pull between them. I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. Then believe this. She took his hand, pressed it over her heart so he could feel it beating. I'm fighting for this, for us, for whatever this is between us. I'm not giving up, and I'm not going quietly into whatever dark place Adrian has planned. For a moment, they just stood there, hands clasped, hearts pounding in sync. Then Elijah pulled her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. We're going to need backup, he murmured into her hair. Morrison, SWAT, everyone. But we do it smart, staged far enough away that Adrian won't see them immediately, but close enough that they can move in fast if things go wrong. He'll have the place wired. Cameras, sensors, something. He'll know the moment anyone sets foot on that island. Then we trip them. We make sure he sees you arriving alone, make him think you're following his rules. But I'll be close, hidden, and the rest of the team will be ready to move in on my signal. They spent the rest of the day planning, going over every possible scenario, every contingency. Morrison and his team would position boats on either side of the island, out of sight. A sniper team would take position on the mainland with a clear line of sight to the chapel. And Elijah would follow Vivian in, staying in the shadows, watching for any opening to neutralize Adrian. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire, Vivian stood in front of her bathroom mirror. She'd removed the black cloth Adrian had placed over it, and now she stared at her reflection, trying to see what he saw when he looked at her. She saw a woman with dark hair and green eyes, a strong jaw, high cheekbones. She saw determination and fear in equal measure. She saw someone who'd spent her life trying to understand monsters, never realizing one of them shared her blood. But she also saw something else. She saw strength, courage, the reflection of someone who wouldn't break, no matter how hard Adrian tried to shatter her. Ready? Elijah appeared in the doorway behind her, dressed in all black, a gun holstered at his side, as I'll ever be. He moved to stand behind her, their eyes meeting in the mirror. Whatever happens tonight, I want you to know. Meeting you these past 2 days, it's been the most real thing I've felt in 15 years. Since Catherine died, I've been living in the past, trapped in guilt and grief. But you pulled me back into the present, into something that feels like it might be a future. Vivian turned to face him, unable to stand the distance of reflection between them. Don't talk like this is goodbye. I'm not, He cupped her face in his hands. I'm telling you what I should have said the moment I saw you. That you're extraordinary. that you're brave and brilliant and beautiful, and that when this is over, when Adrian is locked away and we can breathe again, I want to know everything about you. Your favorite books, your worst fears, what makes you laugh, what makes you cry. I want all of it. Elijah? His name came out as a whisper, and then he was kissing her. It wasn't soft or gentle. It was desperate and fierce, filled with all the fear and longing and need that had been building between them since the moment they met. Vivian's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and he responded by lifting her onto the bathroom counter, stepping between her legs, deepening the kiss until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vivian rested her forehead against his. "We survived tonight," she said, "both of us. And then we figure out what this is." "Deal." He helped her down, his hands lingering on her waist. "But right now, we need to go. The boat leaves in 30 minutes. The journey to Blackwell Island was silent. Vivian stood at the railing of the small motorboat, watching the abandoned hospital loom larger as they approached. It was a Gothic nightmare. Crumbling brick walls, broken windows like empty eyes. Ivy and decay consuming everything. The chapel stood apart from the main building, its spire still intact, pointing toward the darkening sky like an accusation. As they neared the dock, Vivian's phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. "I'm so glad you came, sister. Leave him on the boat. This moment is just for us. Come to the chapel. Come see what I've built for you." Vivian showed the text to Elijah, his jaw clenched. "I don't like this. It's the plan. You wait 2 minutes, then follow. Morrison's team is in position. We have this." "Vivian," she kissed him quickly, tasting coffee and fear and promise. 2 minutes, then you come for me." Before she could change her mind, before fear could paralyze her, she stepped onto the dock and walked toward the chapel alone. The island was eerily silent, except for the sound of waves and wind through the broken buildings. Vivian's footsteps echoed on the cracked stone path. She could feel eyes on her, could sense cameras tracking her movement. Adrian was watching, waiting. The chapel door stood open and warm light spilled out into the gathering darkness. Candlelight. Vivian took a deep breath and stepped inside. What she saw stopped her heart. The chapel was beautiful and horrifying in equal measure. Hundreds of candles illuminated the space, casting dancing shadows on the walls. And on every wall, covering every surface, were mirrors. Dozens of them. Hundreds, maybe. All different sizes and shapes. All reflecting the candlelight back and forth until the entire space seemed to glow. And standing in the center of it all, surrounded by his reflections, was Vivian Cross. He was beautiful. That was the first thought, unbidden and unwelcome. He had light blonde hair, pale eyes, and features that were almost angelic. He wore an expensive suit, perfectly tailored, and he smiled when he saw her, a smile that would have been charming if not for the complete emptiness behind it. "Vivian," he said, his voice cultured and warm. "Finally, after all these years, you came." And behind him, tied to a chair, gagged and bleeding, was a woman who looked exactly like Vivian. Victim number 8, still alive, for now. Chapter 5. The Mirror's Truth. Vivian forced herself to stay calm, to not look at the woman bound behind Adrian. Every instinct screamed at her to rush forward, to free the victim, to end this nightmare. But she knew better. Adrian was watching her every reaction, reading her like a book he'd spent his whole life studying. "Adrian," she said, her voice steady, "let her go. This is between you and me." His smile widened. Always so direct, so practical. "That's one of the things I love about you, sister." He moved closer, circling her slowly, and Vivian could see her reflection multiplying in the mirrors. Dozens of Vivians, hundreds maybe, all watching her with frightened eyes. "But you're wrong. This isn't between us. This is about us, about what we are, what we've always been." "And what's that?" "The same. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could see the candlelight dancing in his pale eyes. Two halves of a whole. Mirror images? I've spent my entire life trying to make you see it, trying to make you understand. But they kept us apart. Father, mother, all those people who were too afraid of what we could be together. Vivian's mind raced. She needed to keep him talking, needed to buy time for Elijah to get into position. Tell me about when you escaped from St. Catherine's. Where did you go? Adrian's expression softened with something like nostalgia. Everywhere. Nowhere. I learned to hide in plain sight, learned to be whoever people needed me to be. The charming stranger, the helpful neighbor, the sympathetic friend. It's amazing what you can get away with when you smile the right way. And you've been watching me all this time. Every day. Every moment I could. I saw you grow up, saw you become brilliant and beautiful, saw you choose psychology, choose to study minds like mine. He reached out and touched her face, and it took everything in Vivian not to flinch away. You were looking for me, even if you didn't know it. Every killer you profiled, every case you solved, you were trying to understand yourself. No, Vivian said firmly. I was trying to stop people like you. People who hurt innocent women, who take lives for their own twisted satisfaction. Twisted? Adrian's expression darkened. There's nothing twisted about it. It's art. It's connection. Each of those women, I chose them so carefully, Vivian. Made sure they looked like you. Made sure that when I posed them, when I gave them that peaceful smile, they were beautiful. Perfect. They were practice. Preparation for this moment. The woman behind him made a muffled sound, tears streaming down her face. She was terrified, shaking, and Vivian could see bruises on her arms, where she'd struggled against the bonds. What's her name? Vivian asked. Does it matter? Yes, it matters. She's a person, Adrian, not a prop in whatever game you're playing. Adrian sighed like she was being deliberately difficult. Jessica Chen. She's an architect, 32 years old. Lives alone in Brooklyn with a cat named Mochi. He said it all without emotion, just reciting facts. I've been watching her for 3 weeks. She has your walk, your laugh. When she concentrates, she bites her lower lip just like you do. The detail of it, the obsessive attention, made Vivian's skin crawl. But she kept her expression neutral, kept him engaged. And what happens to Jessica now? That depends on you. Adrian moved to a table Vivian hadn't noticed before, covered with a black cloth. He pulled the cloth away, revealing a collection of knives, surgical tools, gleaming and sharp. I want to show you something I've never shown anyone. The moment of transformation, when a person becomes a work of art, when their reflection becomes eternal. You want me to watch you kill her? I want you to understand. He picked up one of the knives, testing its edge with his thumb. And then, once you understand, once you see the beauty in it, I want you to try it yourself. There it was, the endgame. Adrian didn't just want her to accept him, he wanted her to become him. Wanted to destroy whatever line separated them, to pull her into his darkness until there was no way back. And if I refuse, then Jessica dies. And then I find someone else. Maybe that detective you work with, Morrison. Or perhaps that doorman of yours who tried to stop me. Or his smile turned cruel. Perhaps I go back and finish what I started with Mother. She's in a hospital bed after all. Vulnerable. Unprotected. Rage flared hot in Vivian's chest. You're going to kill them anyway. That's what you do, so why should I believe anything you say? Because I'm giving you a choice. Adrian set down the knife and moved toward her again. Join me, Vivian. Accept what you are, what we are together, and I promise. No one else has to die. We can disappear. Build a new life somewhere far away. A life where we don't have to hide our true natures. My true nature isn't murder. Isn't it? He was close now, too close. His breath warm on her face. Tell me honestly, sister. When you look at crime scene photos, when you dive deep into a killer's mind, don't you feel it? That pull, that curiosity about what it would feel like to have that kind of power, to make someone into whatever you want them to be. Vivian thought about the dreams, about the way she sometimes woke up with her heart racing and that copper taste in her mouth. She thought about the moment in the hospital when she'd looked at Rachel Winters' body and felt for just a second that terrible fascination. Curiosity is an action, she said. Wondering isn't doing. That's the difference between us, Adrian. I choose not to act on those dark impulses. I choose to help people instead of hurt them. Choice, Adrian scoffed. That's what the weak tell themselves to feel better. But we both know the truth. Some people are born to create, and some are born to destroy. We're the destroyers, Vivian. We always have been. You're wrong. Am I? He moved back to the knives, selecting a scalpel. Then prove it. Save Jessica. Not by refusing to play, that's passive. That's weak. Save her by stopping me. By doing what you came here to do. It was a challenge and a trap all at once. If she rushed him, he'd kill Jessica before she could intervene. If she waited, he'd kill Jessica anyway. And all the while, he was testing her, watching to see if she had it in her to stop him with force. Where was Elijah? It had been more than 2 minutes. He should be here by now. As if reading her thoughts, Adrian smiled. He's not coming, you know. Your protector. Your would-be savior. Vivian's blood ran cold. What did you do? Nothing permanent, just a little surprise outside. He'll wake up eventually with a headache and wounded pride. But by then, this will all be over. Adrian moved toward Jessica, the scalpel gleaming in the candlelight. It's just you and me now, sister. The way it should have been from the beginning. Adrian, please. No more words. He grabbed Jessica's hair, tilting her head back, exposing her throat. Watch carefully. This is the moment. This is what I wanted to share with you. Vivian didn't think. She moved. She grabbed the closest mirror, a heavy antique thing, and hurled it at Adrian. It shattered against his shoulder, sending glass flying. He stumbled back with a shout of surprise and pain, and Vivian rushed forward, positioning herself between him and Jessica. You want me? She said, breathing hard. Then take me. Leave her out of this. Adrian straightened, blood trickling from cuts where the glass had struck him. But he was smiling. Actually smiling. There she is. There's the fire I knew was in you. The darkness you keep so carefully locked away. There's nothing dark about protecting someone. Isn't there? You were ready to hurt me just now. Maybe even kill me if that's what it took. I saw it in your eyes. That flash of violence, of rage. You have it in you, Vivian. You just need permission to let it out. Behind them, the chapel door burst open. But it wasn't Elijah. It was Morrison, flanked by 2 SWAT officers, weapons drawn. NYPD, get down on the ground, now! Adrian's expression didn't change. He just looked at Vivian, disappointed. You brought them. Even after I told you to come alone. You still don't trust me. You still don't understand. I understand perfectly, Vivian said. You're sick. You need help. And I'm going to make sure you get it. In a maximum security psychiatric facility where you can't hurt anyone else. Get on the ground, Morrison shouted again, moving closer. Adrian tilted his head, considering. Then, in one fluid motion, he grabbed Vivian, pulling her against him, the scalpel pressed to her throat. I don't think so, he said calmly. Lower your weapons, or she dies. And unlike those other women, I won't make her death beautiful. I'll make it messy, painful, personal. Morrison froze. The SWAT officers held position, their weapons trained on Adrian, but Vivian could see the calculation in their eyes. No clear shot. Too much risk. Let her go, Morrison said. You let her go, and we can talk about this. No one else has to get hurt. Everyone keeps saying that, Adrian mused, but we all know it's a lie. Someone always gets hurt. That's what makes it interesting. Vivian felt the cold metal of the scalpel against her skin. One wrong move, one sudden pressure, and it would be over. But she also felt something else. Adrian was trembling slightly. For all his bravado, for all his careful planning, he hadn't anticipated this. He was improvising now, and improvisation made him sloppy. Adrian, she said softly, not moving. Remember what you said about us being the same, about mirror images. What about it? Look around, all these mirrors. What do you see? I see us. I see... You see reflections, copies. But they're not real, are they? They're just light and glass. The real us is here, in this moment. Flesh and blood and choice. She could feel his breath against her ear, could smell the copper scent of his blood from the glass cuts. You want me to choose you, to choose this life you're offering. But that means letting me make the choice freely, doesn't it? Not with a knife to my throat. Adrian was silent for a long moment. Vivian could practically hear the thoughts racing through his head, the calculations, the considerations. If I let you go, he said slowly, you'll just let them take me, lock me away again. If you let me go, I'll do something else. Something I should have done from the beginning. She turned her head slightly, just enough to meet his eyes in the nearest mirror. I'll visit you, talk to you, help you understand why what you've done is wrong, give you what you really wanted all along, acknowledgement, connection, family. You'd do that, even after everything? You're my brother, my blood. I can't change that, and neither can you. But I can choose how I respond to it. I can choose to help you instead of just condemn you. It was a gamble, a massive, terrifying gamble. But Vivian could see something shifting in Adrian's expression. Hope, maybe, or at least the desire to believe. You'd visit me, he repeated, testing the words. Yes, not as your victim, not as your accomplice, but as your sister, the one who sees you, really sees you, and doesn't look away. Slowly, incrementally, the pressure of the scalpel against her throat eased. You promise? I promise. Adrian lowered the scalpel. Everything happened at once. Morrison shouted, "Clear!" and the SWAT team rushed forward. Adrian was slammed to the ground, weapons trained on him, hands cuffing him before he could react. Vivian stumbled away, her hand going to her throat where she could feel a thin line of blood. He'd pressed hard enough to cut, but not deep enough to do real damage. Officers were freeing Jessica, wrapping her in a blanket, rushing her toward the door and medical attention. Morrison was reading Adrian his rights, his voice steady and official. And then Elijah was there. He burst through the door, his face bruised and bloodied, his eyes wild with fear and rage. When he saw Vivian standing, saw her alive, something in his expression shattered. Vivian? He crossed the space between them in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. God, I'm so sorry. He had someone waiting outside. I didn't see them until it was too late. Are you hurt? Did he? I'm okay. I'm okay. She held on to him, feeling his heart racing against her chest. Jessica's alive. We saved her. You saved her, Elijah corrected, pulling back to look at her face. His thumb traced the thin cut on her throat with devastating gentleness. You magnificent, terrifying, brilliant woman. You talked him down. I told him what he needed to hear. Did you mean it about visiting him? Vivian looked over at Adrian. He was on his knees now, hands cuffed behind his back, blood from his cuts staining his expensive suit. But he was staring at her, and in his eyes she saw something she hadn't expected. Tears. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe. He's sick, Elijah. Deeply, profoundly sick. But he's also human. And maybe if someone had tried to connect with him years ago instead of just locking him away, none of this would have happened. That's not your responsibility. No, but it's my choice. She turned back to Elijah, reading the concern in his eyes. Not today. Not anytime soon. But someday when I'm ready, maybe I will try to understand him. Not to excuse what he's done, but to understand how someone becomes that broken. Elijah cupped her face in both hands. You're too good for this world, you know that? I'm really not. I'm just trying to survive in it. No, he said firmly. You're trying to make it better, even when it doesn't deserve it, even when it hurts you to try. He kissed her then, gentle and reverent, like she was something precious that needed to be handled with care. And Vivian kissed him back, pouring into it all the fear and relief and desperate hope she felt. When they pulled apart, Morrison was waiting, patient but professional. Dr. Cross, we're going to need your statement. and you'll need to get that cut looked at. Of course. As they walked out of the chapel, Vivian took one last look at the mirrors. They reflected the candles, the destruction, the police officers cleaning up the scene, and in each one, she saw her own face looking back. But this time, the reflection was smiling. Not Adrian's terrible, peaceful smile, but her own, exhausted, bloodied, but genuine. She'd faced the monster in her mirror and survived. Now she just had to figure out how to live with what she'd learned in the process. Outside, the sun was rising over the East River, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. A new day, a new beginning. Or so she hoped. Because as they loaded Adrian into the police boat, as officers secured the scene and EMTs checked Jessica's vital signs, Vivian caught Adrian's eyes one last time. He was still smiling, and he mouthed 3 words, "Not over yet." A chill ran down Vivian's spine, but Elijah's hand found hers, warm and solid and real, and she held on tight. Whatever came next, whatever Adrian had planned or promised, she wouldn't face it alone. She had Elijah, she had the truth, and she had herself. Not the reflection Adrian wanted her to be, but the woman she'd chosen to become. That would have to be enough. Chapter 6. Fractured Reflections. 3 weeks later, Vivian stood in her bathroom staring at the new mirror she'd installed. Plain, frameless, modern. Nothing like the ornate antiques Adrian had covered. She'd thrown all those old mirrors away, unable to look at them without seeing the black cloth, without remembering his hands touching the surfaces she touched every day. The cut on her throat had healed to a thin pink line. Soon, it would fade to white, then to nothing. But she knew she'd always feel it there. Adrian's mark, his claim, the physical reminder of how close she'd come to becoming another one of his victims. Her phone buzzed, a text from Elijah. "Outside, ready when you are." Today was the day. 3 weeks of processing, of therapy sessions, of official statements and legal proceedings. 3 weeks of Adrian sitting in a maximum security psychiatric facility, awaiting trial. 3 weeks of Vivian trying to decide if she'd meant what she said in that chapel. She had. God help her, she had. Elijah was leaning against his Mercedes when she emerged from her building, and despite everything, despite the exhaustion and fear and uncertainty, her heart still stuttered at the sight of him. He'd become a constant in her life over these past weeks, checking on her, bringing her coffee, sitting with her through the nightmares that still came more often than she'd admit. "You don't have to do this," he said as she approached. It was the same thing he'd said every morning for the past week, since she'd made her decision. "Yes, I do." "No, you don't. You don't owe him anything, Vivian. He's a monster. He killed 7 women, nearly killed you, nearly killed your mother." "I know what he is." She slid into the passenger seat. "But I also made a promise, and I keep my promises." The drive to the Ravenswood Institute was silent. Elijah's jaw was tight, his hands gripping the steering wheel with white-knuckled intensity. Vivian knew he hated this, hated the idea of her anywhere near Adrian. But he'd agreed to bring her, to wait for her, to be there when she emerged. The Institute was a fortress, concrete and steel, designed to hold the most dangerous minds in the state. Adrian had his own cell in the maximum security wing, monitored 24/7. No access to anything that could be used as a weapon. Morrison had assured her it was safe. The psychiatrists had assured her it was controlled. But as Vivian went through security, bag searched, metal detector, visitor's badge, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into a trap. That somehow, despite all the precautions, Adrian was still in control. Dr. Sarah Chen, the lead psychiatrist, met her in the waiting area. She was younger than Vivian expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "Dr. Cross, thank you for coming. I know this can't be easy." "How is he?" "Cooperative, engaging. He's been asking for you every day since he arrived." Dr. Chen led her down a long corridor lined with doors, each one holding someone whose mind had broken in some fundamental way. "I should warn you, he's extremely intelligent and extremely manipulative. Don't believe anything he tells you about remorse or change. Men like Adrian Cross don't change. They just get better at hiding what they are." "I'm a forensic psychologist, Dr. Chen. I know what he is." "Do you?" The The woman stopped, turning to face her. Forgive me, Dr. Cross, but knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally are very different things. He's your brother. That bond, that biological connection, it's powerful. He's going to try to use it against you. Let him try. Dr. Chen studied her for a moment, then nodded. The visit is limited to 30 minutes. There will be 2 guards in the room at all times, and I'll be watching from the observation area. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, just say the word red, and we'll end the session immediately. Understood. The visitation room was small and sterile. White walls, a metal table bolted to the floor, 2 chairs on either side. Adrian was already seated, his hands cuffed to a bolt in the table. He wore an orange jumpsuit, and his hair had been cut short, making him look younger, more vulnerable. When he saw her, his face lit up with genuine joy. Vivian, you came. I wasn't sure you would. She sat across from him, keeping the table between them, hyper-aware of the guards standing by the door. I said I would. People say a lot of things they don't mean, especially under duress. He leaned forward as far as his restraints would allow. But you meant it, didn't you? You really do want to understand. I want to understand how someone becomes what you are. Yes. What I am. Adrian smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. And what's that, sister? A monster? A killer? Or just someone who sees the world more clearly than most people can bear to? You're someone who hurts people, who takes lives. Whatever justifications you've built for yourself, whatever philosophical framework you've constructed, that's the reality. Is it? Or is it just a different kind of reality? You spend your life studying killers, Vivian. You know better than anyone that morality is subjective, that what's considered evil in one context is heroism in another. Murder is murder, Adrian. There's no context that makes it right. No? He tilted his head, studying her. What about war? What about self-defense? What about mercy killings? The world is full of justified deaths. I just chose my justifications differently. Vivian took a breath, forcing herself to stay calm, to not engage with his twisted logic. Tell me about Catherine, Elijah's sister. Why her? Something flickered in Adrian's expression. Surprise, maybe, that she'd gone straight to the heart of it. Catherine Kane. Yes. She was beautiful, wasn't she? Like a dancer in a painting. All grace and light. Why did you kill her? Because he loved her. Adrian said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Elijah Kane, the great detective, the brilliant profiler. He was getting too close, understanding too much. I needed to hurt him. Needed to show him that all his knowledge, all his skill, meant nothing in the end. He couldn't save the person he loved most. So you murdered an innocent woman just to prove a point? I murdered her to break him, and it worked, didn't it? He disappeared for a decade, became a ghost. All that potential wasted because I took something precious from him. Adrian leaned back, satisfaction in his voice. And now I've done it again, given him something precious, you, and made sure he'll spend every day terrified of losing it. That's my gift to him. Eternal fear. Rage flared hot in Vivian's chest, but she kept her voice level. You haven't given me to anyone. I'm not yours to give. Aren't you? We share the same blood, the same DNA. You're literally made from the same material I am. And whether you like it or not, when you look in the mirror, you see me. You always will. I see myself, a person who chose a different path than you did. For now. Adrian's smile was knowing, cruel. But how long before the darkness calls too loudly? How long before you wonder what it would feel like? You think about it already, don't you? In the quiet moments, in the dreams. You wonder what it would be like to have that kind of control, that kind of power. Those thoughts don't define me. My actions do. But thoughts become actions, sister. All it takes is one moment, one lapse, one situation where the line gets blurry, and then you'll understand what I've been trying to show you all along. Vivian stood. She'd heard enough. I came here because I wanted to see if there was anything human left in you. Anything worth saving or understanding. But there isn't. You're exactly what Dr. Chen said, a manipulator, a predator. And I was foolish to think otherwise. Vivian, wait. No, we're done. Enjoy your cell, Adrian. It's all you have left. She turned toward the door, but his voice stopped her. I know about the baby. Vivian froze, her blood turning to ice. Slowly, she turned back. What? Adrian's smile was triumphant. The baby mother was carrying when father died. The one she lost in the accident. Except it wasn't an accident, was it? And she didn't lose the baby. She gave it away. Another sibling, Vivian. Another piece of our fractured family. Out there somewhere. Watching. Waiting. You're lying. Am I? Ask Mother. Ask her about the daughter she gave up for adoption 24 years ago. Ask her about Sarah. The room tilted. Another sister. Another piece of this nightmare? You see, Adrian continued, his voice soft and poisonous, I'm not the only one keeping secrets. Our family's built on lies, Vivian. Layer upon layer of deception and hidden truths. And I'm the only one who's been honest with you from the start. Vivian's mind raced. Could it be true? Could her mother have hidden another child, another sibling? Even if that's true, she said carefully, it doesn't change what you are, what you've done. No. But it might change what you do next. Because if there is another sister out there, someone with our blood, our genes, our potential for darkness, don't you think you should find her? Before someone else does? Before she becomes what I am? The guards moved forward as Vivian's 30 minutes expired, but she barely noticed. She was already thinking about her mother, about the questions she needed to ask, about the possibility that Adrian was telling the truth. I'll be seeing you, sister, Adrian called as the guards led him away. Sooner than you think. Elijah was waiting in the parking lot, pacing beside his car. When he saw her face, he was at her side immediately. What happened? What did he say? Vivian couldn't find the words. He says I have another sister, that my mother gave her up for adoption 24 years ago. Jesus. Elijah ran his hand through his hair. Do you think it's true? I don't know, but I need to find out. She looked up at him, saw the concern in his eyes, and felt something settle in her chest. Whatever darkness Adrian had tried to plant, whatever doubts he'd seeded, Elijah was real, solid, true. Will you come with me to see my mother? Of course. Whatever you need. They drove back to the city in heavy silence. Vivian stared out the window, watching the world blur past, thinking about siblings and secrets and the weight of blood ties. When they arrived at the hospital, Margaret had been moved to a long-term care facility while she recovered from her injuries. Vivian's mother was sitting up in bed reading. She looked older, more fragile than Vivian had ever seen her. Mom, Vivian said from the doorway, we need to talk. Margaret looked up, and something in her expression told Vivian that she knew. She'd been waiting for this conversation. You saw Adrian, Margaret said. It wasn't a question. He told me about Sarah, about the sister you gave away. Margaret's face crumpled. Oh, God, I'd prayed he didn't know about her. So it's true. Yes. Margaret set down her book with trembling hands. I was pregnant when Robert died. 5 months along. I was devastated, drowning in grief and fear. And I knew there was something wrong with the baby. The same way I'd known with Adrian. Mothers sense these things. That's not scientific. I know that. But I felt it, Vivian. Felt the darkness growing inside me, and I couldn't. Her voice broke. I couldn't raise another child like Adrian. I couldn't watch another one of my children become a monster. So I gave her up. Found a good family, people who didn't know about our history, about the violence in our bloodline. And I prayed that nature wouldn't win over nurture. Did you ever check on her? Ever try to find out if she was okay? No, I thought it was kinder not to know. Kinder for both of us. Vivian felt Elijah's hand on her shoulder, grounding her. I need her name, her adopted name, where she was placed. Why? Vivian, it's been 24 years. She has a life, a family that raised her. Let her have that. Because Adrian knows about her mom, and if he knows, then she's already in danger. I need to find her first. Need to warn her, protect her, make sure she doesn't become his next target. Margaret's expression shifted to horror. You think he'd go after her? I think he's obsessed with the idea of family, of bringing all of us together. And I think he won't stop until he does. Vivian moved closer to the bed. Please, I need to find her before he finds a way to reach her from prison. Margaret hesitated, then reached for her phone. Her name is Sarah Mitchell. She was adopted by a couple in Boston, James and Eleanor Mitchell. They were academics, good people. I had the agency send me updates until she turned 18, then I made them stop. I don't know where she is now or what she's doing. Boston, where the original Mirror Man killings had happened? Where Catherine Kane had died? Vivian and Elijah exchanged a glance. That couldn't be a coincidence. Thank you, Vivian said, kissing her mother's forehead. We'll find her. We'll make sure she's safe. Vivian, Margaret grabbed her hand. Be careful. If she is like Adrian, if the darkness did win, you might not like what you find. I'll deal with that if it happens. But as they left the hospital, as Elijah immediately started making calls to contacts in Boston, Vivian couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late, that whatever Adrian had set in motion, whatever plan he'd been building, they were just now seeing the full scope of it. Her phone buzzed. An email from an unknown sender. She opened it and her breath caught. It was a photo. A woman who looked exactly like Vivian. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same bone structure. But younger, maybe 24 or 25. She was standing in front of a mirror, smiling at that terrible, peaceful smile. Below the photo, a message. Hello, sister. Adrian told me all about you. I can't wait for us to meet. We have so much catching up to do. See you soon. Love, Sarah. Vivian showed the phone to Elijah, watched his face go pale. He did have a plan, she whispered. He wasn't working alone. Sarah, she's been helping him. She's been part of this from the beginning. Then, we need to find her. Now. Elijah pulled out his own phone. I'm calling Morrison. We need to issue a warrant. Get her photo out to every agency. It's too late for that. Vivian stared at the photo, at her sister's smiling face. She's already coming. For me. For us. This was always where it was headed. Adrian in custody. Sarah free to finish what he started. Then we prepare. We set a trap. We do what we did before. Vivian looked up at him, saw the fear in his eyes, the desperate need to protect her. We face her together, and we end this. Once and for all. Elijah pulled her into his arms, and she buried her face in his chest, breathing in his scent, drawing strength from his solid presence. I love you, he said, the words rough and raw. I know it's too soon. I know we barely know each other, but I love you, and I will not let her hurt you. Vivian pulled back to look at him, saw the truth written in every line of his face. I love you too. That's why I need you to promise me something. Anything. If it comes down to a choice, between stopping Sarah and saving me, you choose to stop her. No matter what, no matter the cost. Vivian, promise me, Elijah. Promise me you won't make the same mistake your father made. Won't let emotion cloud your judgment. The mission is to stop the killer. Everything else is secondary. He looked at her for a long moment, and she could see the war raging behind his eyes. Love versus duty. Heart versus mind. I promise, he finally said. But I'm going to find a way to do both. To stop her and save you. I have to believe that's possible. So do I, Vivian whispered. But as they stood there in the hospital parking lot, holding each other against the gathering dark, Vivian couldn't shake the feeling that only one of them was going to survive what was coming. And she had no idea which one. Chapter 7, The Sisters Game. The FBI field office in Manhattan was a hive of controlled chaos. Morrison had pulled every string he had to get them access to federal resources. And now Vivian stood in front of a wall of screens showing everything they'd compiled on Sarah Mitchell in the past 48 hours. It wasn't much. Sarah Mitchell had lived a seemingly normal life. Graduated from Boston University with degrees in psychology and art history. Worked as a museum curator for 3 years. No criminal record, no red flags. Her adopted parents described her as quiet, intelligent, perhaps a bit distant, but otherwise unremarkable. Until 6 months ago when she'd quit her job, emptied her bank account, and disappeared. She went underground right when Adrian started planning the Ashford murders, FBI agent Rebecca Torres said, pointing to a timeline on the screen. We think that's when he made contact with her. How? Vivian asked. Adrian was already being careful, already hiding. How did he find her? DNA database, Torres replied. One of those ancestry sites. Sarah had submitted her DNA 2 years ago, looking for biological family. Adrian must have been monitoring the databases, waiting for her to appear. Elijah stood beside Vivian, his hand resting on the small of her back, a constant grounding presence. What happened to her adopted parents? Torres's expression darkened. Dead. House fire 8 months ago. Ruled accidental at the time. But now we're taking another look. The timing is suspicious. She killed them, Vivian said, her voice hollow. Her own parents. The people who raised her. We don't know that for certain. Yes, we do. Vivian pointed to the photo of Sarah, that terrible smile in front of the mirror. Look at her. She's already become what Adrian is. The question is whether she was always like this, or if he made her this way. Morrison entered the room, his phone pressed to his ear. When he ended the call, his face was grim. We've got a problem. The adoption agency that handled Sarah's placement, it burned down last night. All records destroyed. Sarah's covering her tracks, Elijah said. She doesn't want us tracing her movements, figuring out how she and Adrian have been communicating. There's more, Morrison continued. The fire wasn't empty. There was a body inside. Female, late 20s, throat cut, posed in front of a mirror. The room went silent. She's starting her own gallery, Vivian whispered. Her own collection. Adrian gave her the blueprint, and now she's executing it herself. Do we have an ID on the victim? Torres asked. Morrison shook his head. Oh, working on it. But Vivian, the victim looks like you, just like all the others. Of course she did. Because Sarah wasn't just copying Adrian's methods. She was competing with him, trying to prove she was just as good, just as devoted to their twisted craft. Vivian's phone buzzed. Another email from Sarah. This one contained a video file. Don't open that, Torres warned, but Vivian was already clicking it. The video showed a room Vivian didn't recognize. Stark white walls, a single chair in the center, and Sarah standing behind it. She wore the same serene smile, and in her hand was a knife. Hello, Vivian. Sarah's voice was warm, almost friendly. I wanted to introduce myself properly. Adrian's told me so much about you, about your brilliance, your strength, your ability to see into the darkest corners of the human mind. We're so alike, you and I. More than you know. She moved around the chair, and the camera followed. Sitting in the chair, bound and gagged, was a woman with dark hair and green eyes. Another Vivian look-alike. This is Emma, Sarah continued, running her fingers through the woman's hair, almost tenderly. She's a therapist, just like you studied to be. Helps people understand their trauma, their pain. But here's the thing about pain, sister. It's the only thing that's real. The only thing that cuts through all the lies we tell ourselves about who we are and what we're capable of. The woman in the chair was crying, shaking her head desperately. Adrian says you're still in denial about what you are, what we all are. So I'm going to help you understand. Sarah raised the knife. This is a gift. From me to you. Watch carefully. Turn it off, Elijah said, reaching for Vivian's phone. But Vivian couldn't look away. She watched as Sarah made the first cut. Not fatal, just painful. Watched as the woman screamed behind her gag. Watched as Sarah talked calmly about technique, about the art of causing maximum suffering, about how power felt flowing through your hands when you held someone's life in your control. It lasted 3 minutes. 3 eternal, horrifying minutes. And then Sarah smiled at the camera. Your turn, Vivian. Come find me. Come see what we can create together. Or stay in denial and watch me kill everyone who looks like you. Everyone you might have been if you'd been brave enough to accept your nature. The choice is yours, sister. But choose quickly. I'm getting impatient. The video ended with an address. 1247 Ashford Street, Boston. Adrian's old apartment, where Catherine Kane had died 15 years ago. It's a trap, Morrison said immediately. She's luring you to a place with emotional significance for Kane. She wants you both there. Of course it's a trap, Vivian replied, her voice steady despite the horror still echoing in her mind. But we don't have a choice. She has Emma. She's going to keep killing until I face her. Then we send in a tactical team. Surround the building, extract the hostage. She'll kill Emma the moment she sees them coming. You know she will. Vivian looked at Elijah, saw her own determination reflected in his eyes. We have to go in. Just us. It's what she wants. What she's engineered. 2 against 1. 3 against 1, Morrison corrected. Because I'm coming with you. Marcus -- Non-negotiable, Dr. Cross. You two go in the front. I come in the back with a tactical team staged a block away. First sign of trouble, we move in. He held up his hand before Vivian could argue. That's the deal. Take it or I arrest you both for obstruction and go in without you. Elijah nodded. Done. But we need to move now, before she hurts that woman any more than she already has. The drive to Boston took 4 hours. 4 hours of Vivian staring out the window, trying not to think about Emma, about the pain in her eyes, about how many more women would die if they failed. 4 hours of Elijah driving in tense silence, his jaw clenched, his mind clearly racing through scenarios and strategies. They stopped once at a rest area halfway there. Elijah insisted they eat something, though Vivian barely tasted the sandwich he bought her. They sat in the car, not speaking, just existing in each other's presence. Tell me something, Vivian said finally. Something normal. Something from before all of this. Elijah looked at her, surprised. Then his expression softened. What do you want to know? Anything, everything. What's your favorite book? What do you do when you can't sleep? Do you believe in fate? He smiled, sad and genuine. My favorite book is The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. When I can't sleep, I play piano. I have an old upright in my apartment that I bought at an estate sale. And yes, I believe in fate. Or at least, I believe in moments that change everything. Crossroads where your life splits into before and after. Like finding Catherine? Like finding you. He reached across the console and took her hand. The moment you opened that door 3 weeks ago, everything changed. I felt it then, even though it made no logical sense. Like the universe had been pushing us toward each other all along, and we'd finally collided. That's very romantic for a man who studies serial killers for a living. Maybe that's why it's romantic, because we both know how rare genuine connection is, how precious, how fragile. He brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. Whatever happens tonight, Vivian, I want you to know. These past weeks with you have been the most alive I've felt in 15 years. Don't talk like that, like you're saying goodbye. I'm not. I'm saying hello. To whatever comes after this, when Sarah is in custody and Adrian is truly finished, and we can just be 2 people who found each other in the dark. Vivian leaned across the console and kissed him, pouring into it all the things she couldn't say. The fear and love and desperate hope that they'd survive long enough to have that future. When they pulled apart, they sat forehead to forehead for a moment, breathing together. Let's go catch a killer, Elijah said. 1247 Ashford Street was a brownstone in a quiet neighborhood. The kind of place where people walked their dogs and knew their neighbors' names. It looked utterly ordinary, which made it more unsettling. How many times had Catherine Kane walked up these steps, never knowing she was being watched by a monster? The door was unlocked. Of course it was. Sarah wanted them to walk in. Morrison and his team were positioned a block away, ready to move in on Elijah's signal. But Vivian knew they'd only get one chance at this. If they tipped their hand too early, Sarah would kill Emma. Too late, and she might kill them. The apartment was dark, lit only by candles. Dozens of them, just like the chapel on Blackwell Island. And mirrors, everywhere, reflecting the flickering light back and forth until the space seemed to glow. Welcome home, Sarah's voice echoed from somewhere deeper in the apartment. I've been waiting for you. Vivian and Elijah moved carefully through the space, weapons drawn. Elijah had insisted she carry a gun, had spent hours teaching her to shoot. The apartment layout was simple: living room, kitchen, 2 bedrooms, bathroom. But the mirrors made it disorienting, made it impossible to tell what was real and what was reflection. They found Emma in the bedroom, the same bedroom where Catherine had died. She was still alive, still bound to the chair, but unconscious now. Fresh blood stained her clothes from multiple shallow cuts. Sarah had been torturing her for hours. "Elijah, check her vitals," Vivian whispered. "I'll find Sarah. We stay together. She wants me, not you. I'll draw her out while you get Emma to safety." Before he could argue, Sarah's voice came from the bathroom. "That's sweet, sister. Always the hero. But I'm afraid it's not that simple." Vivian turned toward the sound, her gun raised. In the bathroom doorway, Sarah stood with another knife, twirling it casually. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking. She could have been Vivian's twin. But there was something wrong in her eyes, something hollow and hungry. "Let Emma go," Vivian said. "This is between us." "Is it?" "Because I think it's about much more than that." Sarah moved into the room, graceful and confident. "It's about family, about blood, about finally accepting what we are instead of running from it." "I'm nothing like you." "Aren't you?" Sarah gestured at the mirrors. "Look at yourself, Vivian. Really look. You chase killers. You spend your days diving into the worst impulses of humanity. You dream about murder, about blood, about that moment of transformation. How is that different from what I do? I stop killers. You create victims." "Semantics." Sarah circled closer, and Vivian tracked her with the gun. "We're both obsessed with death, with control, with understanding what happens when the light leaves someone's eyes. The only difference is I'm honest about it." Behind Sarah, Vivian saw Elijah working to free Emma, his movements quick and efficient. "Just a little longer. Just keep Sarah talking." "Tell me about your parents," Vivian said. "Your adopted parents. Did they love you?" Something flickered in Sarah's expression. Pain, maybe, or rage. "They tried. God, they tried so hard. But they could never truly see me, never understand what I was. They kept trying to fix me, to make me normal. Therapy, medication, prayers, as if their love could somehow override my DNA. So you killed them." "I freed them from the burden of a daughter they could never understand. And I freed myself from pretending to be something I'm not." Sarah stopped circling, facing Vivian directly. "When Adrian found me, when he told me about you and about what we could be together, it was like coming home, like finding the family I'd been searching for my whole life. Adrian is using you. He's manipulating you into becoming his mirror image, so he doesn't have to be alone in his madness." "Is that what you think?" Sarah laughed. "Oh, sister, you still don't understand. Adrian didn't make me this way. I was born this way, just like you were. The only difference is I stopped fighting it." Elijah had Emma free now. He was carrying her toward the door, moving silently. Almost there. Sarah's eyes flicked toward him, and Vivian saw the moment she realized what was happening. "No!" Sarah lunged forward, knife raised. Vivian fired. The shot caught Sarah in the shoulder, spinning her around. She hit the wall hard, the knife clattering from her hand. But she was laughing, actually laughing. "You shot me," she said, sounding delighted. "You actually shot me. See? You do have it in you. The violence. The will to hurt. To stop you from hurting someone else," Vivian corrected, moving closer, gun still trained on Sarah. "That's not the same thing. Keep telling yourself that." Sarah's hand moved towards something in her pocket. "Don't!" Vivian shouted. But Sarah pulled out a small remote and pressed the button. Somewhere in the apartment, something clicked. Then the mirrors started to explode. Not all at once, that would have been too simple. One by one, starting from the living room and moving inward, the mirrors shattered. Glass flew everywhere, and Vivian threw her arm up to protect her face. In the chaos, Sarah lunged, not at Vivian, but toward the window. She crashed through it in a shower of glass and disappeared. "No!" Vivian ran to the window. They were on the 3rd floor. Below, Sarah was pulling herself up from the fire escape landing, blood streaming from her shoulder and from dozens of cuts. She looked up at Vivian, smiled that terrible smile, and climbed down. Elijah was at Vivian's side immediately. "Morrison, we need units on the south side of the building." Suspect is escaping down the fire escape. But by the time they made it down the stairs and out of the building, Sarah was gone, vanished into the Boston streets like smoke. Morrison's team found Emma's blood trail, but nothing else. No witnesses, no security footage, nothing. Sarah had planned this too well, had backup escape routes prepared. "She's gone," Morrison said, frustration evident in every line of his body. "We'll put out an APB, get her photo to every agency, but she'll change her appearance," Vivian finished. "Cut her hair, dye it, wear colored contacts. She's intelligent and resourceful. She could be anyone." "Then we go back to Adrian," Elijah said. "Make him tell us where she'd run, what her next move would be." "He won't tell us anything. This is what he wanted. Sarah free, causing chaos, keeping us off balance." Vivian looked at the blood on the fire escape, at the trail leading to nowhere. "He's playing a longer game than we realized." "What do you mean?" Vivian's phone buzzed. Another email from Sarah. This time, just 3 words. "Round 2 soon." And attached was a photo, taken from across the street just moments ago. Vivian and Elijah standing at the window, visible and vulnerable. Sarah had been watching them the whole time, had planned to escape from the beginning. This whole thing, Emma, the apartment, the confrontation, it had all been theater. A test. A message. "She's not running," Vivian said slowly, understanding dawning cold and terrible. "She's studying us, learning how we think, how we work together. She's planning something bigger." "But what?" Morrison asked. "What could be bigger than this?" Vivian thought about Adrian's words in the prison, about family, about bringing them all together, about reflections and mirrors and twisted bonds. "She's going to try to break us," Vivian said. "Make us turn on each other. Make me become what Adrian always said I was." She looked at Elijah, saw the fear in his eyes. "And she's going to use you to do it. I won't let that happen." "You might not have a choice. None of us might." Vivian pulled out her phone, scrolling back through the emails, the photos, looking for patterns she'd missed. Sarah said round 2, which means there's a round 3 coming, a final confrontation. And she's going to make sure it happens on her terms. "Then we change the terms," Elijah said. "We stop playing defense and start playing offense. We find her before she finds us." But as they stood in that Boston street, as Morrison's team processed the scene and Emma was loaded into an ambulance, Vivian couldn't shake the feeling that they were already playing Sarah's game. That every move they made, every decision they took, was exactly what Sarah wanted. Adrian had taught his protege well. And now, 2 killers with Vivian's face were out there, waiting in the shadows, planning the next move in a game that could only end one way, with blood, with mirrors, with reflections that would haunt them all forever. Chapter 8, Breaking Points. Vivian couldn't sleep. It had been 4 days since Boston, 4 days since Sarah disappeared into the night, and every shadow felt like a threat. She stood in Elijah's apartment. She'd moved in temporarily, neither of them willing to be apart, staring out at the Manhattan skyline as dawn broke over the city. Elijah's apartment was different from hers, warmer somehow, filled with books and old vinyl records and that upright piano he'd mentioned. She'd heard him play it once, late at night when he thought she was asleep, something melancholy and beautiful that had made her chest ache. "You're thinking too loud," Elijah's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him standing in the bedroom doorway, wearing only pajama pants, his hair disheveled from sleep. Even exhausted and worried, he was beautiful. "Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't." He moved to join her at the window, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "I can always tell when you're awake. It's like I can feel it, even in sleep." Vivian leaned back against him, drawing comfort from his warmth. "We're missing something. Some piece of Sarah's plan. She's too quiet, too still. It's been 4 days. Maybe the shoulder wound was worse than we thought. Maybe she's hiding, recovering. Or maybe she's just waiting, watching, planning the perfect moment to strike." Vivian turned in his arms to face him. "Elijah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." His expression grew guarded. "What is it?" "If it comes down to a choice between catching Sarah and saving me, what would you do?"
Vivian.
"I'm serious, because I think that's what she's building toward. Some scenario where you have to choose, and I need to know that you'll make the right choice. The right choice is keeping you alive. No, the right choice is stopping her before she kills again, before she becomes what Adrian is. We can't let personal feelings compromise the mission." Elijah pulled away, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "Don't ask me to choose between the job and you. Don't ask me to sacrifice you for some abstract concept of justice. It's not abstract, it's real. Every day Sarah is free, someone else could die. Someone else's sister, someone else's daughter. Like Catherine." The words came out bitter. "That's what this is really about, isn't it? You think I'll make the same mistake I made with her? That I'll prioritize your safety over the case, and someone will die because of it? I think you're human. I think you love me, and love makes us do irrational things. Makes us compromise our principles. Then maybe love is the problem." Elijah's voice was hard now, defensive. Maybe we shouldn't have let this happen between us. Maybe Morrison was right. We're too emotionally involved to be objective. The words hit like a physical blow. "Do you mean that?" He looked at her for a long moment, and she could see the war raging behind his eyes. Then his expression softened. "No, God, no, I'm sorry. I'm terrified, Vivian. Terrified of losing you the way I lost Catherine. Terrified that history is repeating itself. And this time, I won't be able to stop it." Vivian crossed to him, took his face in her hands. "Then we have to trust each other. Trust that we can do this together. That we're stronger as a team than we are separately. I do trust you. It's fate I don't trust. The universe seems to have a cruel sense of humor when it comes to people I love. Then we write our own ending. We don't let Adrian or Sarah or fate or anyone else decide how this story goes." She kissed him, soft and sure. "We survive, both of us, and we put them away forever." Elijah's phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered, his expression growing darker with each passing second. "When?" he asked. Then, "We'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and looked at Vivian, and she knew before he spoke that everything had changed. "Morrison found something. We need to get to the precinct now." The precinct was chaos. Officers running back and forth, phones ringing, the energy of a major break in the case. Morrison met them at the door, his face grim. "We found Sarah's safe house. Or what was her safe house? Someone tipped us off. Anonymous call, untraceable. But when we got there," he led them to a conference room where photos were spread across the table. Vivian's blood turned to ice. The walls of Sarah's hideout were covered in photos. Not just of Vivian, though there were plenty of those, but of everyone in Vivian's life. Her mother, Morrison, officers who'd worked the case, Elijah's sister, Catherine, old photos, crime scene photos, personal photos stolen from Elijah's apartment. And in the center of it all, a timeline. A detailed, obsessive timeline, mapping out every interaction between Vivian and Elijah. Every touch, every kiss, every moment of intimacy. Sarah had been watching them constantly, documenting their relationship with the precision of a scientist studying lab rats. "She's been in my apartment," Elijah said, his voice deadly quiet. "She's been inside, going through my things while we were—" "There's more," Morrison interrupted. He pulled out another photo. This one showed a young woman, maybe 19 or 20, with Vivian's dark hair and green eyes. This was pinned to the wall with a note. It says, "Next." "Who is she?" Vivian asked, though dread was already pooling in her stomach. "Her name is Lily Cross. She's your cousin, your father Robert's brother's daughter. Lives in Brooklyn working as a paralegal while she finishes law school. And according to her roommate, she hasn't been home in 3 days." The room spun. "Sarah has her. She's going to kill her." "We don't know that for certain." "Yes, we do." Vivian slammed her hand on the table. "That's what the note means. That's what all of this means. Sarah is working her way through my family tree, killing everyone who looks like me, everyone who shares my blood. She's not just trying to become me, she's trying to erase me, to be the only one left. Why would she do that? Morrison asked. What's the end game? Vivian looked at the photos again, at the timeline of her relationship with Elijah, and suddenly it all clicked into place. She wants what I have. The life, the career, the connection with someone who understands. She wants to be me. And the only way to do that is to remove me from the picture. But she looks exactly like you, Elijah said. She could have assumed your identity at any time. Why kill all these women first? Practice, preparation, making sure she could pull it off. Each victim was a rehearsal, learning how to pose a body, how to create that peaceful smile, how to become the artist Adrian trained her to be, and now she's ready for the final performance. Witches? Vivian's phone buzzed. She knew before she looked at it what it would be. A video message from Sarah. This time the background was different. Not a stark white room, but somewhere familiar. It took Vivian a moment to place it. Then horror flooded through her. It was her childhood home, the house where she'd grown up, where her mother still lived. Hello, sister, Sarah said. The camera focused on her face, so like Vivian's, yet so different in the emptiness behind the eyes. I'm tired of playing games, tired of dancing around what we both know has to happen. So let's make this simple. You have 24 hours to come to me. Come alone. Come ready to face what you really are. And maybe, I'll let some of these people live. The camera panned to show Lily, bound and gagged in a chair. Then to another figure, and Vivian's heart stopped. Her mother. Margaret was unconscious, slumped against the wall, blood matting her silver hair. 24 hours, Sarah repeated. Your childhood home, where it all began, where dear old Dad used to read you bedtime stories, where you played in the backyard, where you grew up thinking you were normal. Come see what our family really is. Come meet your destiny. The video ended. Vivian was already moving toward the door. Wait, Morrison grabbed her arm. You can't just rush in there. That's exactly what she wants. She has my mother and my cousin. I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. We can send in a tactical team, surround the house, and Sarah kills them both the moment she sees you coming. You know she will. Vivian pulled her arm free. This has to end. One way or another, it has to end. Then we do it smart, Elijah said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. We plan it out. We give ourselves every advantage we can. 24 hours is enough time to prepare. Vivian wanted to argue, wanted to leave immediately, but she knew he was right. Running in unprepared would just get everyone killed. Fine. But I'm going in. With or without backup, with or without a plan. That house, it's my past, my history. If this is where it ends, then at least it's on my terms. They spent the next 20 hours preparing. Morrison assembled a team, mapped out the property, planned approach vectors. Elijah drilled Vivian on tactics, on how to keep Sarah talking, how to create openings for extraction. But Vivian knew deep down that none of it would matter. Sarah had chosen this location for a reason. She'd planned every detail, every contingency. Whatever happened in that house, it would be what Sarah wanted to happen. As the sun set on the day of the deadline, Vivian stood in front of Elijah's bathroom mirror, the only one she could stand to look at anymore, and studied her reflection. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same face that Sarah and Adrian shared. 3 of them, 3 branches of the same poison tree. But she wasn't them. She'd chosen differently. Chosen light over darkness, connection over isolation, love over obsession. She had to believe that choice mattered, that it made all the difference. Elijah appeared in the mirror behind her, and for a moment, they just looked at each other's reflections. I'm going to be there, he said, staged outside, ready to move in. You won't be alone. I know. She turned to face him, real instead of reflected. And if something happens, if this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, I need you to know that these past weeks with you have been the best of my life, that you pulled me out of the dark and showed me what it feels like to be truly seen, truly loved. Vivian! She kissed him, pouring everything into it, all the love and fear and desperate hope she felt. When they pulled apart, both had tears in their eyes, Come back to me, Elijah whispered. Whatever it takes, whatever you have to do, just come back. I'll try. It was the only promise she could make. The drive to Westchester felt both endless and too short. Morrison drove, Elijah in the passenger seat, Vivian in the back, watching the familiar streets roll past. Streets she'd played on as a child, before she knew about Adrian, before she knew what darkness lurked in her family tree. The house looked the same as always. White colonial, blue shutters, the oak tree in the front yard where her father had hung a tire swing. It should have looked welcoming, safe. Instead, it looked like a tomb. Last chance to change your mind, Morrison said. We can still... No, I'm going in. Vivian checked the gun holstered at her side, the wire she wore so the team could hear everything. Just be ready when I call for backup. She got out of the car before she could lose her nerve, before fear could paralyze her. The front door was unlocked, just like on Blackwell Island. Sarah wanted her to walk in, wanted her to see what had been prepared. The house was dark except for candlelight, Sarah's signature. And there, in the living room, were mirrors. So many mirrors, reflecting the flickering flames until the entire space glowed. And in the center of it all, Sarah waited. She'd changed since Boston, cut her hair short like Vivian's, dyed it to match exactly, wore clothes identical to what Vivian had on. If not for the bandage on her shoulder where Vivian had shot her, they could have been twins. There you are, Sarah said, smiling. I was beginning to think you wouldn't come. Where are they? Where are my mother and Lily? Safe for now, upstairs, resting. Sarah moved closer and Vivian saw the knife in her hand. Not a scalpel this time, but something bigger, more brutal. But we need to have a conversation first. Sister to sister, about what happens next. What happens next is you let them go and turn yourself in. Sarah laughed. Oh, Vivian. Always so predictable, so moral, so convinced that there's a right way and a wrong way to live. She gestured at the mirrors. But look, really look. Tell me, which one of us is the reflection? Which one is real? Vivian saw herself multiplied 12 times, 100 times. Each reflection slightly different in the wavering candlelight. And Sarah identical to her, moving through the space like a ghost. We're both real, Vivian said, but that doesn't mean we're the same. Doesn't it? We share DNA. We share a father, a family history of violence and madness. We even share the same face. The only difference is I stopped lying to myself about what I am. You're right. That is the difference. Vivian moved slowly, keeping space between them, positioning herself closer to the stairs. You gave in to the darkness. I chose to fight it. That's what makes us different. That's what makes me human and you a monster. Sarah's smile vanished. Monster? That's what they all say. Mother with her prayers and her therapy. Father, locking Adrian away like an animal. The world, deciding that people like us are broken, wrong, evil. But we're not broken, Vivian. We're evolved. We're the next step. And if you just stop fighting it, if you just accept what Adrian has been trying to show you all along, Adrian is insane. And he's made you insane too. Has he? Or has he just shown me the truth? Sarah lunged forward, knife flashing. Vivian barely dodged, pulling her gun. Don't make me shoot you again. Go ahead. Pull the trigger. Kill your own sister. Prove that you're just like me. That when it comes down to it, you'll do whatever it takes to survive. You'll embrace the violence you pretend to abhor. Shooting you isn't murder. It's self-defense. It's stopping you from hurting anyone else. Semantics, Sarah hissed. It's still taking a life. Still feeling that power surge through your veins. And once you do it, once you cross that line completely, you can never go back. You'll always know what you're capable of. A sound from upstairs, a muffled cry. Lily or her mother. Vivian couldn't tell which. Let them go, Sarah. This is between us. It always has been. You're right, it is. Sarah lowered the knife slightly. So let's make a deal. A real one. Not the games Adrian likes to play. You and me. One-on-one. No guns, no tricks. Just sisters. Finally settling who we really are. And if I win, you let them go? If you win, I turn myself in. confess to everything. Give you Adrian, too. I know things about him. Things he's done that no one else knows. Crimes that would put him away forever. Sarah's eyes glittered in the candlelight. But if I win, you do what Adrian always wanted. You accept what you are. You join me. And together, we become something the world has never seen before. It was madness. Agreeing to fight Sarah one-on-one was exactly what she wanted. Exactly what she'd been planning. But upstairs, someone cried out again. And Vivian knew she didn't have a choice. Fine. But no knives. Hand to hand. Fair fight. Sarah considered, then smiled and set down the knife. Fair enough. Though I should warn you, I've been training for this moment my entire life. Adrian made sure of it. Vivian removed her gun, her wire, everything that could be used as a weapon. She could feel Morrison and Elijah listening, could imagine their protests. But she couldn't stop now. Had to see this through. The two women circled each other, mirror images in the mirror-lined room. Vivian saw herself reflected 1,000 times, saw Sarah reflected just as many. And for a moment, she couldn't tell them apart. Then Sarah attacked. She was fast, faster than Vivian expected. Training and rage making her movements fluid and deadly. Vivian blocked the first strike, countered with one of her own. They grappled, fighting for dominance, two versions of the same woman locked in combat. Sarah was stronger, more experienced in violence. But Vivian had something Sarah didn't, something to fight for beyond herself. She had Elijah, had her mother, her career, her life, had a future worth surviving for. They crashed into mirrors, glass shattering around them. Blood, whose blood, Vivian couldn't tell, spattered on the remaining mirrors, distorting the reflections further. You can't win, Sarah panted, landing a blow to Vivian's ribs that made her gasp. You're holding back, too afraid to really hurt me, but I have no such limitations. She was right. Vivian was pulling her punches, some part of her still seeing Sarah as family, as salvageable, and it was going to get her killed. Sarah's hand closed around a shard of mirror glass. She raised it, ready to bring it down into Vivian's throat. And Vivian made a choice. She stopped holding back. Her fist connected with Sarah's jaw, snapping her head back, then her knee to Sarah's wounded shoulder, making her scream and drop the glass. Then, a final strike, precise and controlled, to the temple. Sarah crumpled, unconscious. Vivian stood over her, breathing hard, blood dripping from cuts she hadn't noticed receiving. She'd done it. She'd won. But as she looked down at Sarah's face, her face, she felt no triumph. Only sadness. Sadness for the woman Sarah could have been, if things had been different. If love had found her instead of Adrian's poison. It's over, she said into the wire she'd dropped. Sarah's down. Send in the team. Within seconds, the house filled with officers. Morrison and Elijah burst through the door, weapons drawn. When Elijah saw Vivian standing, alive, something in his expression shattered with relief. Upstairs, Vivian said. My mother and Lily. They need medical attention. As officers rushed to secure Sarah and check on the hostages, Vivian walked out of the house where she'd grown up, where she'd thought she was normal, where her childhood had been a lie. And she kept walking, past the police cars, past the ambulances, past the concerned officers trying to check her injuries. She walked to the oak tree with the tire swing and collapsed against it, her body finally acknowledging the pain, the exhaustion, the trauma. Elijah found her there minutes later. He didn't say anything, just sat beside her and pulled her into his arms. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Vivian let herself break. Let herself cry for everything she'd lost, everything she'd learned, everything she'd had to become to survive. It's over, Elijah murmured into her hair. You did it. You saved them. You saved yourself. Did I? Vivian pulled back to look at him. Or did I just prove that Sarah and Adrian were right all along? That when pushed far enough, I'm capable of the same violence they are? No, never. Elijah's hands framed her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. You fought to protect people you love. That's not the same as what they do. Intent matters. Choice matters. You're nothing like them. How can you be sure? Because I know you. Because I've seen your heart, your soul, everything you are. And there's no darkness there, just light, just courage and compassion and strength. Vivian wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly. Behind them, officers were bringing out Sarah on a stretcher, handcuffed and unconscious. Then her mother and Lily, both alive, both injured but stable. They'd survived, all of them. Against impossible odds, they'd survived. Take me home, Vivian whispered. Please, I just want to go home. Where's home? Elijah asked softly. Vivian looked at him, at the man who'd walked into her life during the darkest moment, who'd stood beside her through horror and fear and impossible choices. Wherever you are, she said. Home is wherever you are. Chapter 9. The Final Reflection. 2 months later, Vivian sat in Dr. Patricia Reeves's office, staring at the abstract painting on the wall. She'd been coming to therapy twice a week since the night at her childhood home, working through the trauma, the guilt, the questions that still haunted her in the dark. You're thinking about Adrian again, Dr. Reeves observed. She was in her 60s with gray hair and kind eyes that missed nothing. I can always tell. You get this distant look, like you're somewhere else entirely. His trial starts next week, Vivian said. Both his and Sarah's. They want me to testify. And how do you feel about that? I don't know. Part of me wants to face him one last time. To show him that I survived, that I'm not what he said I was. But another part... She trailed off, unsure how to articulate the fear that coiled in her stomach whenever she thought about seeing Adrian again. Another part is afraid he still has power over you. Yes, it was a relief to admit it. Every time I look in a mirror, I see him, see Sarah, see what I could have become if I'd made different choices. But you didn't make different choices. That's what matters. You chose to be who you are. A woman who helps people, who fights for justice, who loves deeply. Those choices define you, not your DNA. Vivian nodded, but the words felt hollow. She'd heard variations of them from everyone, Elijah, Morrison, her mother. But none of them could quiet the voice in her head that whispered, "You're just like them. You're one bad day away from becoming exactly what they are." Her phone buzzed, a text from Elijah. "Dinner tonight? I'm cooking." Despite everything, the message made her smile. Elijah had become her anchor, her safe harbor in the storm. They'd officially moved in together a month ago, and he'd been patient with her nightmares, her sudden panics, the days when she couldn't bear to look at her own reflection. "That's the first genuine smile I've seen from you today," Dr. Reeves noted. "Elijah? He's making dinner. He's a terrible cook, but he tries. He loves you." "I know." And she did know. Could feel it in every gesture, every look, every moment they shared. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being fair to him, dragging him into my darkness. Or maybe he's choosing to walk beside you through it. Maybe you're not giving him enough credit for his own agency, his own choices. Dr. Reeves leaned forward. "Vivian, you can't protect everyone from everything. Sometimes you have to trust that the people who love you are strong enough to handle the truth of who you are. All of it. Darkness and light together." As Vivian left the session and walked through the city streets toward home, she thought about those words. Trust, choice. The idea that she could be both, damaged and whole, scarred and healing, connected to darkness but not consumed by it. She stopped at a flower shop and bought lilies, her mother's favorite. Margaret was still recovering, both physically and emotionally. The attack had left her with nightmares of her own, and there was a new fragility to her that broke Vivian's heart. But they were talking more honestly now, working through decades of secrets and lies. When Vivian arrived at the apartment, she could smell something burning. "Don't say it," Elijah called from the kitchen as she opened the door. "I know. I set off the smoke alarm again." Vivian laughed. A real laugh. One that felt like sunshine, breaking through clouds. She found him at the stove, waving a towel at the smoke detector, his hair disheveled and a smudge of something on his cheek. "What were you trying to make?" she asked. "Coq au vin. Or what was supposed to be coq au vin. Now it's more like charred chicken surprise." He looked so sheepish, so adorably frustrated, that Vivian crossed to him and kissed him. How about we order Thai food instead? You're too good to me. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her close. How was therapy? Hard, good, both. She rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Dr. Reeves says I need to trust that you're strong enough to handle my darkness. I am. I promise you. I am. I've seen the worst of humanity, Vivian. I've studied killers for decades. Your darkness doesn't scare me. It's part of what makes you who you are. Someone who understands the shadows because you've walked through them. Even when I wake up screaming, even when I can't look at mirrors without seeing their faces, even then, especially then. He pulled back to look at her. You're healing. It's not linear, it's not easy, but you're doing it. And I get to be here for it, which is the greatest privilege of my life. Later, after Thai food and wine and hours of just being together, Vivian's phone rang. Morrison's name flashed on the screen. Her stomach tightened. Morrison didn't call at night, unless it was important. Dr. Cross, Morrison's voice was grave, I need you to stay calm. There's been an incident at Ravenswood, the psychiatric facility where Adrian was being held. What kind of incident? A guard was found unconscious in Adrian's cell. Adrian is gone. He escaped 4 hours ago. The world tilted. Vivian gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, feeling Elijah's steadying hand on her back. How? How is that possible? He's maximum security, monitored constantly. We're still piecing it together. But Vivian, there's more. Sarah escaped too, from a different facility at the exact same time. This was coordinated, planned. They're coming for me. It wasn't a question. We don't know that. Yes, we do. This is what it's always been building toward. Adrian, Sarah, both of them free. Coming to finish what they started. Morrison was silent for a beat. We're sending units to your location now. You and Kane need to stay put, stay safe. Do not go anywhere alone. Vivian ended the call and looked at Elijah. His expression had gone hard, professional. The same look he'd worn that first night when he appeared at her door. We need to leave, he said. Now. Get somewhere they won't expect, somewhere we can defend. No. Vivian's voice was steady, certain. No more running. No more reacting to their plans. If they're coming, then we meet them on our terms. Vivian, think about it. They escaped at the same time, which means they planned this together, which means they're working as a team now. Two killers, both obsessed with me, both with nothing to lose. She moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. They'll come here, to this apartment, because this is where I feel safe, where I've built a life. They'll want to destroy that. Then we let Morrison's team secure the building, and they'll just wait us out, or hurt someone else to draw us out. No, Elijah, we end this tonight. We set a trap. Use me as bait. Absolutely not. It's the only way. You know it is. She turned to face him. We control the environment, set up cameras, have Morrison's team staged close by. And when Adrian and Sarah make their move, we're ready. We end this once and for all. She could see the war raging in his eyes, his love for her battling against his tactical training. Finally, he nodded. But we do it smart. We plan every detail, cover every contingency. And at the first sign that things are going south, we call in the cavalry. They spent the next hour transforming the apartment into a fortress. Cameras in every corner, weapons hidden but accessible. Morrison's tactical team staged in the building across the street. Elijah walked her through scenarios, practiced responses, made sure she knew how to signal for help, and then they waited. The hours crawled by. Midnight came and went. 1 a.m. 2. Vivian sat on the couch, Elijah beside her, both of them wound tight with anticipation. Tell me something, Vivian said softly. If we survive this, when we survive this, what do we do next? Elijah took her hand. What do you want to do? I want to go somewhere without mirrors. Somewhere sunny and warm, where I can forget what it feels like to see my face reflected back at me through someone else's madness. She leaned against him. I want to wake up and not immediately check the shadows for threats. I want to just be with you, without all of this hanging over us. Then that's what we'll do. We'll go to Greece or Italy, somewhere with blue water and ancient ruins and no one who knows our names. We'll be tourists, lovers, just two people who found each other and decided to stay. You make it sound so simple. It can be. After tonight, after this is over, we get to choose simple. We've earned it. At 3:17 a.m., the power went out. Elijah was on his feet immediately, gun drawn. They're here. Vivian's heart raced, but her hands were steady as she reached for her own weapon. They'd practiced this, knew what to do. The emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in dim red. And in that crimson glow, Vivian saw a figure standing in the hallway. Adrian. He looked different from the last time she'd seen him. Thinner, harder, with a wild light in his pale eyes. And beside him, Sarah, her hair grown out now, her shoulder healed. That same empty smile on her face. "Hello, sister," they said in perfect unison. "How did you get in?" Elijah demanded, his gun trained on Adrian. "You underestimate us," Adrian said. "You always have. We've been planning this for months. Had people in place, resources hidden, contingencies upon contingencies. Did you really think your building security could stop us?" Morrison's team is currently dealing with a gas leak 3 blocks away. Anonymous tip. They're evacuating the building across the street as we speak. Sarah moved closer, graceful as a dancer. "It's just the 4 of us now, the way it should be. Family." "You're not my family," Vivian said. "You're strangers who share my DNA, that's all." "Is it?" Adrian tilted his head. "Then why do you look so much like us? Why do you wake up screaming from dreams that we share? Why do you see what we see when you look at crime scene photos?" "Because I'm human. Because I have empathy and imagination and the ability to understand suffering. That doesn't make me like you. Doesn't it?" Sarah circled to the left, flanking them. Vivian and Elijah adjusted, trying to keep both siblings in view. "Tell me, sister, when you fought me at the house, when you beat me unconscious, what did you feel in that moment? Satisfaction? Power? The thrill of domination?" "I felt nothing. I did what I had to do to save innocent people." "Liar." Sarah's smile widened. "I saw your face. Saw the moment you stopped holding back. You enjoyed it. Enjoyed the violence. Enjoyed proving you were stronger than me." "That's not..." "Enough talk," Adrian interrupted. He pulled out a gun. Where had he gotten a gun? And pointed it at Elijah. "Here's what's going to happen. Vivian, you're going to choose. Your lover or your sister. Save one, watch the other die. And in that choice, you'll finally understand what you really are." Time seemed to slow. Vivian saw the calculation in Adrian's eyes, the madness in Sarah's smile, the fear barely controlled in Elijah's expression. And she understood. This was what it had always been building toward. Not her death, not her capitulation, but this moment, this impossible choice that would define her forever. "No," she said simply. Adrian's expression flickered with confusion. "What?" "I said no. I'm not choosing. I'm not playing your game. You want me to prove I'm like you? I'm going to prove the opposite." She lowered her gun. "I choose neither. I choose to trust that Elijah and I are strong enough, smart enough, connected enough to survive this together, without playing by your rules." "Then you choose to watch him die." Adrian's finger tightened on the trigger. Everything happened at once. Vivian dove toward Adrian, not away. Her shoulder hit his midsection, throwing off his aim. The gun went off, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Behind her, she heard Elijah shout, heard the crash of furniture. She and Adrian hit the floor hard, grappling for the weapon. He was stronger, but she was desperate. The gun skittered away across the hardwood. Sarah lunged for Elijah. Vivian saw them collide, saw the flash of a knife in Sarah's hand. Terror shot through her. She couldn't lose him, couldn't let Sarah take away the man she loved. But Elijah was ready. He'd been training for this moment for 15 years, since the night Catherine died. He blocked Sarah's strike, disarmed her with brutal efficiency, and had her pinned in seconds. Adrian's hands closed around Vivian's throat. "You should have chosen," he hissed. "You should have accepted what you are. Now you get to die ignorant." Vivian's vision started to blur. darkness creeping in at the edges, but she could hear Elijah shouting her name, could hear Morrison's team finally breaking through the door, could feel the life pulsing through her veins, demanding she survive. Her hand found the gun. She pressed it against Adrian's temple. "Let go!" He did. Slowly, reluctantly, his hands released her throat. She gasped for air, the gun never wavering. "It's over, Adrian. It's finally over." "Then," he stared at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something human in his eyes. Confusion, hurt. The lost little boy who'd been locked away in a hospital, who'd never learned how to be anything but broken. "You could have been magnificent," he whispered. "We could have been magnificent together." "No, we couldn't, because I'm not you. I never was, and I never will be." Morrison's team flooded the apartment. Officers securing Adrian and Sarah, paramedics checking Vivian and Elijah for injuries. The apartment was chaos. Shattered furniture, blood on the floor, the aftermath of violence. But it was over. Really, truly over. Vivian let Morrison take her statement, let the paramedics bandage her throat, let the world happen around her in a blur. And through it all, Elijah's hand held hers, solid and real and warm. When they finally left, hours later, as dawn broke over the city, they stood on the street outside the apartment building and just breathed. "We survived," Elijah said, sounding almost surprised. "We survived," Vivian confirmed. "What now?" Vivian thought about Greece, about blue water and ancient ruins, about waking up without fear, without the weight of Adrian and Sarah hanging over them. "Now we live," she said. "Really live. Not just survive, but thrive. Build something beautiful out of all this ugliness." Elijah pulled her into his arms, and she let herself sink into his embrace. Safe. Loved. Free. Behind them, police cars drove away carrying Adrian and Sarah back to custody. Real custody this time. Maximum security with no possibility of escape. The nightmare was over. But as Vivian stood there in the growing light, held by the man she loved, she made herself a promise. She would never forget what she'd learned. About family, about choice, about the thin line between darkness and light. Would never forget that being related to monsters didn't make you monstrous. That DNA wasn't destiny. That love was stronger than blood. And she would never, ever take for granted the miracle of having survived, of having found Elijah in the darkness, of having chosen again and again to be more than what Adrian and Sarah said she was. She'd looked into the mirror and seen the truth, not the reflection they wanted her to see, but the one she'd created herself. And she was finally, beautifully, triumphantly free. Chapter 10. Beyond the mirror, 6 months later. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the verdict. On the count of murder in the first degree, we find the defendant, Adrian Cross, guilty. Vivian sat in the gallery, Elijah's hand wrapped around hers, and felt something release in her chest. Not relief exactly. The damage Adrian had done could never be undone. The lives he'd taken could never be restored. But justice. Finally, justice. The judge continued through each count. 7 murders, multiple counts of kidnapping, assault, attempted murder. By the time she finished, Adrian would spend the rest of his life in a maximum security psychiatric facility with no possibility of parole. Adrian sat at the defense table, his expression blank. But as the guards moved to escort him out, he turned and looked directly at Vivian. For a moment, their eyes met across the courtroom. She'd expected to see hatred, rage, the emptiness that had defined him for so long. Instead, she saw something else. Acceptance, maybe, or understanding. As if, in the end, he finally grasped that they were different. That the path he'd chosen and the path she'd chosen had led to 2 very different destinations. He nodded once, a small gesture that might have been respect or farewell or simply acknowledgement. Then he was gone. Sarah's trial had concluded a week earlier with an identical verdict. Both siblings would spend the rest of their lives locked away, studied by psychiatrists, dissected in case studies and academic papers. They would become cautionary tales, examples of what happened when nature and nurture collided in the worst possible way. But they would never hurt anyone again. Outside the courthouse, journalists swarmed. Vivian had prepared a brief statement, thanking law enforcement, expressing sympathy for the victims' families, asking for privacy as she continued to heal. She delivered it with Elijah beside her, Morrison standing supportively behind them, and then they escaped into a waiting car. "How do you feel?" Elijah asked as they drove away from the courthouse, from the cameras, from the final chapter of the nightmare. "Free," Vivian said, and it was true. For the first time in months, maybe in her entire life, she felt truly free. Free from secrets, from lies, from the weight of wondering what darkness might be lurking in her DNA. And exhausted and grateful, all of it at once. Want to go home and order takeout? Watch terrible reality TV and not think about any of this? Actually, Vivian reached into her bag and pulled out 2 envelopes. "I was thinking we could do something else." Elijah opened his envelope. Inside were 2 plane tickets to Santorini, leaving tomorrow morning. "Greece," he said, his voice soft with emotion. "You remembered." "Of course I remembered. You promised me blue water and ancient ruins. Somewhere we could just be 2 people who found each other and decided to stay." She smiled. "I'm ready for that. Ready to leave all of this behind and start fresh. What about your practice, your cases?" "I'm taking a sabbatical. Morrison's already cleared it. 3 months of nothing but sun and wine and you. No killers, no profiles, no darkness. Just light." Elijah pulled her close and kissed her, deep and sure and full of promise. "Have I mentioned lately that I love you?" "Not in the last hour." "Then I'm overdue. I love you, Vivian Cross. I love your strength and your courage and your ability to choose light even when you're surrounded by darkness. I love how you see the best in people, how you fight for justice, how you make me want to be better than I am." "You are better. You've always been better." She rested her forehead against his. "And I love you too. For seeing me, really seeing me, when I couldn't see myself. For standing beside me through hell. For believing in a future when all I could see was the past." They spent that evening packing, planning, dreaming about what the next 3 months would hold. And later, as Vivian stood in front of the bathroom mirror, a simple, ordinary mirror with no memories of Adrian or Sarah attached to it, she looked at her reflection and finally saw just herself. Not Adrian's sister, not Sarah's twin, not a potential killer or a damaged woman or anything other than Vivian Cross. Psychologist, survivor, woman in love. Just herself, whole and human and healing. The reflection smiled back, and for the first time in months, it didn't frighten her. 3 months later, Santorini, Greece. The sun was setting over the caldera, painting the white buildings gold and pink. Vivian sat on the terrace of their rented villa, a glass of wine in her hand, watching the light play across the water. She looked different now. Her skin was tan from hours in the sun. Her hair had lightened, streaked with gold. The lines of tension that had bracketed her mouth for months had smoothed away, replaced by laugh lines from too many evenings spent giggling with Elijah over his attempts to speak Greek to the locals. The nightmares had faded. Not completely. She still woke sometimes with her heart racing, still had moments where she saw Adrian's face in crowds, but they were becoming less frequent, less powerful. The darkness was losing its grip. "Penny for your thoughts," Elijah said, emerging onto the terrace with a bottle of wine for refills. He looked different, too, relaxed, younger, the haunted look finally gone from his eyes. "I was thinking about how far we've come. 6 months ago, I was staring down a gun in our apartment, convinced I was going to die. And now I'm here, watching the sunset in Greece, with the man I love actually believing in tomorrow. That's quite a journey. The best kind." She accepted the wine refill. "Morrison called while you were in town. They want me to consult on a case when we get back. And I think I'm ready. Ready to use what I learned, what I survived, to help other people, to take all that darkness and transform it into something meaningful." "You're sure? You don't have to go back to that world if you don't want to." "I know, but I'm good at it. Understanding killers, getting inside their heads, and now I understand something I didn't before. that I can do that work without losing myself in it, without becoming what I study. She set down her wine glass and moved to stand beside him at the railing. Adrian was wrong about so many things, but especially about choice. He thought we were destined to be what our DNA dictated. But these past months have proven the opposite. Every day, I choose who I want to be. And I choose light. I choose love. I choose life. Elijah turned to face her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. He was nervous, she realized. Elijah Kane, who'd faced down serial killers and walked into danger without hesitation, was nervous. "There's something I want to ask you," he said. "Okay." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. When he opened it, the ring inside caught the sunset light, a simple platinum band with a single diamond that seemed to hold all the colors of the sky. "Vivian Cross, I know we've only known each other for less than a year. I know we met under the worst circumstances imaginable. I know that by all logical measures, this is too fast, too soon, too crazy." He took her hand. "But logic doesn't explain what I feel when I look at you. Doesn't explain how you've become my home, my peace, my reason for believing in tomorrow. So I'm not going to be logical. I'm going to be honest. I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life waking up beside you, building something beautiful with you, choosing light with you every single day. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Vivian's face. Happy tears, joyful tears, tears that washed away the last remnants of fear and doubt. "Yes," she said. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, and then he was kissing her as the sun set behind them, as the world glowed gold and pink and perfect. And Vivian felt something she hadn't felt in so long she'd almost forgotten what it was. Hope, pure, uncomplicated, beautiful hope for the future. 1 year later, New York City. Vivian stood in front of the mirror in her childhood bedroom, the same bedroom where she'd grown up, where she'd dreamed of becoming a psychologist, where she'd been blissfully unaware of the darkness in her family tree. But today was about light. Today was her wedding day. The bedroom looked different now. Her mother had redecorated after everything that happened. New paint, new furniture, new mirrors that held no memories of Adrian or Sarah. It was a fresh start, a reclamation of space that had been violated. Margaret appeared in the doorway, stunning in a silver mother-of-the-bride dress, tears already glistening in her eyes. "Oh, sweetheart," she breathed, "you look beautiful." Vivian turned and the wedding dress whispered around her. Ivory silk, simple and elegant, with lace sleeves that covered the faint scars on her arms. Scars that told a story of survival, of strength, of choosing to live even when darkness tried to consume her. "Thank you, Mom, for everything. For protecting me all those years, even when I didn't understand. For being strong enough to survive. For being here today." Margaret crossed the room and took her daughter's hands. "I'm so proud of you, of the woman you've become. Your father would be too. Your real father, Robert. He loved you so much, wanted so badly for you to have a normal, happy life. I think I finally do. Or at least I'm building one, with Elijah. He's a good man, a strong man. He'll stand beside you through anything." "I know." Vivian squeezed her mother's hands. "Are you ready? It's almost time." The wedding was small, just close friends and family in a garden ceremony. Vivian had specifically chosen an outdoor venue, somewhere with sky and trees and no mirrors to reflect her face back at her. Somewhere that felt open, free, alive. As she walked down the aisle on Morrison's arm, he'd agreed to give her away, this man who'd protected her, believed in her, stood by her through hell. Vivian saw Elijah waiting at the altar. He wore a navy suit that made his blue eyes even more intense. And when those eyes met hers, when he smiled with such love and joy and promise, Vivian felt her heart expand to hold all of it. Dr. Reeves officiated. It had seemed fitting. This woman who'd helped Vivian heal, helped her understand that trauma didn't have to define her future. And as she spoke about love and choice, and the courage it takes to open your heart after surviving darkness, Vivian felt the truth of every word. Elijah and Vivian have written their own vows, Dr. Reeves said. Elijah went first, taking Vivian's hands in his. Vivian, when we met, I was a man trapped in the past, haunted by guilt, convinced I'd never deserve a second chance at happiness. But you showed me that the past doesn't have to be a prison, that we can choose to honor what we've lost while still embracing what we've found. You taught me that love isn't about being perfect or unburdened. It's about being brave enough to be seen, scars and all. I promise to stand beside you through every challenge, to be your partner in choosing light, to love you fiercely and completely for all the days of my life. Vivian's voice was steady as she spoke her vows. Elijah, you walked into my life during the darkest moment I'd ever known, and you brought hope with you. You saw me, really saw me, when I couldn't see myself. You believed in my strength when I doubted it. You loved me not despite my darkness, but including it, showing me that I could acknowledge the shadows without being consumed by them. I promise to build a life with you based on choice, on trust, on the daily decision to love even when it's hard. I promise to be your safe harbor as you've been mine. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of my life. When they exchanged rings, simple platinum bands that matched the engagement ring, Vivian felt the weight of commitment settle over her like a blessing. By the power vested in me, Dr. Reeves said with a smile, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. And Elijah did, pulling Vivian close and kissing her as their friends and family cheered, as the sun shone down warm and bright, as the future spread out before them like an open road. Epilogue. 2 years later. The nursery was painted a soft yellow with white clouds floating across the ceiling. Vivian stood in the doorway, watching Elijah assemble the crib, his tongue poking out slightly in concentration, the way it always did when he was focused on a task. You know we have 4 more months before the baby comes, she said, one hand resting on her rounded belly. You don't have to finish it today. I want it perfect, Elijah said, consulting the instructions again. Our daughter deserves perfect. Their daughter. Vivian still couldn't quite believe it. After everything, after Adrian and Sarah, after the trials and the trauma and the long journey toward healing, she was going to be a mother. The pregnancy had been unexpected. They'd talked about children, but agreed to wait a few years, to solidify their healing, to make sure they were ready. But life had other plans. And when Vivian had seen the positive test after the initial shock, she'd felt something unexpected. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. You're thinking again, Elijah observed, setting down the screwdriver and crossing to her. His hand joined hers on her belly, and together they felt their daughter kick, strong and insistent, already making her presence known. I was thinking about how different this is from what I imagined. 2 years ago, I couldn't look at myself without seeing Adrian and Sarah. Couldn't imagine a future that wasn't defined by them. And now, I'm here, married to you, about to become a mother. It feels like a miracle. You're worried, Elijah said, reading her as easily as he always did. About the genetics, about what we might pass down. Vivian didn't deny it. The fear was there, always would be. The knowledge that Adrian and Sarah's DNA ran through her veins, that whatever darkness had driven them lived somewhere in her genetic code. What if she's like them? Vivian whispered. What if there's something broken in her, something we can't fix? Elijah turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Then we'll love her anyway. We'll get her help, support her, teach her to make good choices, but Vivian, his voice was firm, certain. She's not going to be like them, because she'll have what they never had. 2 parents who love her unconditionally, who'll teach her empathy and compassion, and the value of choosing light, who'll never lock her away or give her up or make her feel like she's fundamentally wrong. You really believe that? That nurture can overcome nature? I believe in you. I believe in us. I believe that this little girl, he placed his hand over Vivian's belly again, is going to be extraordinary. Not because of her genetics, but because of her choices, just like her mother. Vivian leaned into him, drawing strength from his certainty. He was right. Their daughter would have every advantage Adrian and Sarah hadn't: love, stability, parents who understood the darkness and could teach her to navigate it. She would be okay. They would all be okay. Later that night, Vivian sat at her desk in the home office she shared with Elijah. She was writing, not case notes or psychological profiles, but a book. A memoir about her experience, about surviving Adrian and Sarah, about learning to live beyond the trauma. It was hard work, dredging up those memories, putting them on the page. But it was also cathartic, transforming the nightmare into something that might help others who'd faced similar darkness. She'd tentatively titled it Beyond the Mirror, Choosing Light After Darkness. Her phone rang. Morrison's name flashed on the screen. "Marcus, it's late. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. Just wanted to check in, see how you're doing. How's the baby?" "Active. I think she's going to be a soccer player." Vivian smiled. "But you didn't call at 11 p.m. to ask about my pregnancy. What's really going on?" Morrison sighed. "You always could read me. There's a case. Multiple murders. Patterns similar to some of the work you've done. The team could really use your insight." Vivian looked at the manuscript on her screen, at the words she'd written about healing and moving forward. Then, she looked through the doorway at Elijah, at the nursery they were preparing, at the life they'd built. "Send me the files," she said. "I'll take a look. But Marcus, I'm only consulting remotely right now. No field work, no site visits. Not until after the baby comes and I've had time to recover." "Understood. And Vivian, thank you. You're saving lives, you know. Every case you help us solve, every killer you profile, you're making a difference." After they hung up, Elijah appeared in the doorway. "Morrison? New case. I said I'd consult. You sure you're up for it?" "I think so. It's time to fully step back into that world. To use what I learned, what I survived, to help others." She stood and moved into his arms. "But on my terms. Balancing the work with this, with us, with our family, with the life we've built." "That's my girl," Elijah murmured into her hair. "Always choosing light. Always fighting for what's right." They stood together in the doorway, between the office and the nursery, between past and future, between darkness and light, between who they'd been and who they were becoming. And Vivian thought about mirrors, about reflections, about how for so long she'd seen Adrian and Sarah when she looked at her own face. But not anymore. Now, when she looked in the mirror, she saw a woman who'd survived, who'd chosen love over hate, connection over isolation, hope over despair. She saw a wife, a soon-to-be mother, a psychologist who helped people, a writer who told her stories so others might find courage in theirs. She saw herself, finally, completely, beautifully herself. The reflection smiled back, and Vivian smiled too, because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. We are not defined by what we're born into, but by what we choose to become. Not by our reflections, but by our actions. Not by our darkness, but by the light we choose to shine. And Vivian Cross, survivor, fighter, lover, healer, had chosen light. Every single day she chose light, and she always would. The end.